Hello, everyone. Welcome AWS User Group Madurai members and everyone who's a serverless enthusiast. So I happily welcome you to the serverless day of AWS User Group Madurai. We are going to celebrate serverless for next 3 hours. So which means we are going to have a lot of we are going to have a technical talks by experts here. We have all the heroes and community builders who are ready to give you talks on serverless. If you are new to serverless, I guess it's a very good start for you. You can learn about what to start serverless and how you can get started in AWS as well. And more than that, we have something special for you. So as AWS user group members, you are very enthusiastic, you always engage with us. So for that, we have a social media contest running. So all you have to do is uh, just tweet about what's happening here. So take a screenshot of your favorite speaker or the information that you see, post it in Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We are available in three big platforms. Do tag us with at AWS user group Madurai, which is at AWS UGMDU. Only then we will be able to see your tweets and retweet it as well. And if possible, use hashtag MDU Serverless Day. So we are going to select three winners from each platform. I'm sorry, one winner from each platform, from LinkedIn, from Instagram, and from Twitter. The winner is going to get an amazing swag. So we are going to reveal what the swag is going to be at the end of the day, but it's going to be amazing. It can be something of AWS credits, or it can be something where you can flaunt your AWS swag. So with that all being said, don't forget, do tag us, do tweet it. So that's the thing. So before we hop into today's session, I would like to talk about few things about what we do at AWS User Group Madurai. I suppose a few of you here are new members. So in the comments, do let us know who are all new here. So is this your first online event attending from AWS User Group Madurai? Do let us know. And what we do at AWS User Group Madurai. So we are known for one thing, which is invent and simplify. So we run a lot of initiatives, especially for you, where we understand and we hear your voices. And all we do is to make sure that we enhance your learning experience much more better. So what all we do here, so if you're a college student, then all you have to do is just reach out to us. You can represent us in your college. So if you're a person who are enthusiastic about learning AWS, even if you don't know about much about it, it's totally fine. But you are very much interested about sharing the knowledge. All you have to do is reach out to me either in Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, wherever we are. So you can represent us in your college. By representing us, you can run your own community events. You can teach AWS, you can learn it, and so on. So what do you get out of that? So you get an exclusive AWS College Cloud Champ digital badge, which you can use it for your resumes and CVs wherever it goes. So which adds a very good added advantage to your resumes and your placement offers as well. And secondly, that you get direct interactions with all our experts here. So from heroes to community builders and to all the people or folks over here, you can get to learn about AWS and stuff. And of course, with those comes a lot of benefits. You get to experience AWS credits, swags from time to time, and more importantly, I can assure you that you will become an amazing community person at the end of the day. And you might have heard about something called AWS Community Builders, right? If not, we'll be posting about it soon in our channels and our social medias. Uh, a person who is very well involved in community and likes to share about AWS knowledge with the community, we will be happy to help you guys get into AWS Community Builder program as well. So it has a lot of benefits. That is one thing. So AWS College Cloud Champs is one initiative. So you will find more information today in our social media handles post this event, so you can catch up and follow on. So the second one is the Creators Club. So yes, we heard about you. So the one thing which we are uniquely doing it apart from any user groups which is existing in the whole AWS ecosystem is that we want the members to learn and contribute. It does not need to be always a one-way where experts come in an online session and just deliver talks about and we go off. No, we want you to learn together with us. And with the learn, we also strongly support and encourage you to share that knowledge with everyone. So that helps you to become the ultimate community person. So and I'm very sure that there are very active few active persons who have been contributing for a while, but they don't really deserve I mean they don't really get the deserved recognition. So we from AWS User Group Madurai wanted to give you that recognition and showcase your work to the entire world. So audio being created. So let me go and ask you folks here. So folks in the chat who are online right now, guys, do you like memes or do you like comics? Do you like watching Instagram reels and so on? So I guess pretty much I would expect the answer yes there. Correct. So if you want to share AWS knowledge in any form, if you're a meme creator, go and create memes for AWS. Share your knowledge to that. If you like creating reels, do that. Or if you like to write, then you can go for blogs. Or if you like me, who likes to speak in front of camera, then you can also do that. So we have the platform for you to contribute anything with related to AWS, whatever you learn. And it does not just stop here. That's the interesting part. We recognize you with points, which is for every single contribution that you make with us, that will be posted in our website live. And also you will be awarded a point. With each point, we'll be ranking the top creators of each month. And with that, the top contributors, of course, will get some amazing swags as well from AWS User Group Madurai, especially and exclusively, and you can showcase that. Not just that, of course, that will also pay you a path to be the ultimate community person, and you can also hop into a community builder with your constant contributions. So, with that being said, and if you're a person who are so we know that we have college cloud champs for college students and creators club for anyone who likes to contribute with regards to AWS. And I understand there are a lot of people who have wanted and reached out to me regarding training and certification. So where do I start getting trained for cloud practitioner exams, or how should I start for solution architecting exam, or where could I find the right voucher, or how do I need to apply or schedule an exam? So we really like to want to help you to get certified. So we run a lot of study groups. So let me know which study group you are interested. If you wanted to become a cloud practitioner or you wanted to become a solution architect, we are going to construct a small study groups for you so that you can learn a peer-to-peer learning, and we will also help you with uh, some vouchers from time to time. We can't guarantee you that, but of course, we are in talks. We could give you vouchers, or we can give you the guidance and certification, as well as the resources, as well as the guidance from the right experts for you to get certified. So, since I get a lot of comments here, so people are willing to learn about cloud practitioner. So stay tuned. You will be receiving information about a new study group that will be initiated in the following month. So, how many of you here know about serverless, or this is the first time I'm going to learn about serverless? Do let me know. So, without any further ado, before going to the first session, I would like to also remind that we have a social media contest running. So, all you have to do is click a screenshot of the event and post it in Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram, and do tag us with AWS UGMDU. Okay, only then we'll be able to see your post. So, a person will be selecting the winner not in just random, but whoever has the highest and more engagement will be getting some amazing credit and swag. So, and secondly, we have some quiz contests coming up. So all you have to do is stay tuned to the sessions, learn, and you will be able to win quiz contests as well. So we have two quiz contests right after each two sessions. So stay tuned till the end of the day and keep engaging with us. So for more information, you are asking about the study groups and how to contribute and everything. Those links and follow-ups will be communicated to you post this session. So stay tuned and we'll get engaged. So without further ado, I'm bringing in our first speaker of the day, Jones. Hello, Jones. I guess you are muted.
Yes. So, hey Vivek, good morning.
Good morning. So happy to have you as the first speaker of Serverless Day in Madurai. So let me we have a very big introduction for Jones, but I'll leave it to him. So with just small introduction. So Jones is an amazing AWS community person. He's an AWS serverless hero, and he's currently working as a developer advocate at Thresholds. So if you're in Bangalore, do say hi. We can open for a community meetup. And if you want to learn anything about serverless, Jones is the right person for you to reach out immediately. So I'm going to give the session over to Jones. So we are going to go to the first session, and Jones, I'll be in background if you need anything.
Sure, Vivek. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you for that short and crisp introduction. So, the first session, I believe, was about how you could use event triggers or event filtering with Lambda function triggers. Before we get started, just a little intro about me. I'm Jones Noel. I'm a senior developer advocate at Freshworks. I'm an AWS serverless hero. I co-organize AWS UG Bengaluru. And I also run my newsletter and blog called the Serverless Terminal, which focuses on all things serverless, architectures with serverless, and different things happening in the serverless world. So stay tuned about it. And I come from this background as a serverless architect. You can use the QR code to connect with me on different social media handles. Today, we'll look into how Lambda triggers work, and also we'll deep dive into event filtering that is supported on Lambda functions. And there is a fun demo as well to demonstrate the function of event filtering on Lambda function triggers. Well, when we speak about Lambda functions, of course, today there is millions of Lambda functions out there powering tens of thousands of your workloads, which you use day in, day out. And you might know that Lambda function gets triggered in various ways, or various services invoke your Lambda function. A little background about how this happens is that whenever a Lambda function is invoked, it happens in three different ways, or it is powered by three different mechanisms, where one is a synchronous way, asynchronous, and a poll-based mechanism. When we speak about synchronous, you could think about APIs or your REST APIs or things like that, where you invoke your Lambda function, expect the Lambda function to respond back to you. It could be where, like a REST API, you invoke Lambda function, does the processing, the compute, everything, and then returns back a response so that the API gateway or the invoking service can use that and return it back to the client itself. The other way is asynchronous. So most often Lambda functions is used in various different scenarios where it's event driven, and there's a lot of asynchronous based invocations. So when you have a service, say for example S3, and whenever you put an object to S3, it can invoke your Lambda function. So it is basically a event based triggering where it does it asynchronously. So asynchronously here means S3 invokes Lambda function and proceed ahead with whatever it's doing. So it invokes and forgets the rest of the things. So what happens in this is that you are decoupling things so that you're not waiting for a response back. Instead, the workloads can continue to execute, and whenever there's a response, the other things can be invoking, and the chain continues. The other way is a pull-based way, where Lambda function or Lambda service. Here I'm specifically mentioning it as Lambda service because it's a whole component in your serverless architecture, where Lambda service polls or constantly checks if there is any new data, if there's any change in data, and if so, it invokes your Lambda function. So three basically ways where it could be synchronous, asynchronous, and poll based. So just a few handful of services which could invoke Lambda functions. Of course, there is a lot more to the invoking plate, but this is some of the commonly used services that you have, something like S3, DynamoDB, it could be API Gateway, Event Bridge, a lot of these things. So whenever these things happen, all of these uses one of the type of invocation type for your Lambda function so that it could invoke, either wait for the response or invoke and forget it and do asynchronous, or it could be like Lambda function is checking if there is any updates and then invoking the Lambda function. So yeah, that about the triggers itself. Let's go into event filtering. So when we talk about event filtering is something that's based on poll-based mechanism. So what happens under the hood is that Lambda functions will check if there's a new item or not, and if there's an item, it invokes the function. So whenever this is happening, this is based on a couple of things where you have a targeted invocation. It could be cost effective. And also, when you're doing a lot of these things, you could have expressions to validate against. And if that expression satisfies, only then the Lambda function could be triggered. So, say, for example, you have DynamoDB streams as your trigger for your Lambda function, and you don't want to invoke your Lambda function always. So you do a lot of operations on DynamoDB, be it uh, create, update, delete, and whenever these operations are happening, all of these would invoke your Lambda function because there is a data change. And when there's a data change, you may not be that your workload requires you to process all of them. So you end up having a lot of code in your Lambda function where your Lambda function code focuses about filtering, checking if that is a valid event that you're looking for, and doing all of these mundane tasks. So with event filtering, that could be reduced. And when that is reduced, you're also reducing the number of invocations with Lambda functions so that it's cost effective in a way for your complete architecture. This way, you're not only telling that, hey, you're being performant, but also cost effective. Like I was just mentioning, what happens under the hood is I've used DynamoDB for an example here where Lambda service does a constant poll to check if there's something on the DynamoDB streams. So whenever there's a DynamoDB operation, it puts it into stream, and Lambda service is which is checking if there's a new item or not on the stream. Will check if there's a new item. Then it's going to check if there's any filter expression that's defined for the Lambda function trigger. If it's not, then it just invokes the Lambda function. If there is some event filter that is defined, then it checks for the validation of that event filter with the data itself. So say, for example, you're looking for something like there has to be a DynamoDB insertion. So whenever the event is insert, that is when you want to invoke your Lambda function. So what it does first is it's going to check if there's a new item. If there's a new item, then it checks if there's a filter that's being defined, filter expression that's being defined. Here in this case, the filter expression is going to be something like insert. And when the filter expression matches with the data that's there in DynamoDB streams, it invokes the Lambda function. This way, you're not invoking Lambda function for delete or update. Again, making it cost effective and more performant. So today, there are a couple of services which support this event filtering on Lambda functions. So some of them are, or all of them here listed here are the ones that support this event filtering on Lambda function triggers. So it's DynamoDB streams, SQS, Amazon MQ, Kinesis data streams, and Apache Kafka, both managed and Amazon managed. So when all of these work, these return these are based on the polling mechanism that I was mentioning earlier. So all of these services, the invocation is based on the poll-based mechanism. So whenever there's a new data, Lambda service checks if there's a new data and then proceeds ahead. When you're doing all of these things, these services send in a JSON payload to your Lambda function, and these JSON payload is what is being validated against when you have the filter expression. So each of these services, again, like I was mentioning, there are different JSON payloads that are there. So when you're using DynamoDB streams, the key that you'll be validating is with DynamoDB. If it's SQS body, if it's Kinesis data streams and Amazon MQ, you'll be searching with data. If it's Apache Kafka, both managed and self-managed, you'll be checking against values. So when all of these JSON payloads come in, what Lambda service will do is it would check the event filtering patterns or expressions on these specific keyloads. So when you're checking with these keys, if it validates, that's exactly when the Lambda function is going to be triggered. If it does not satisfy the filter expression, it's going to skip the Lambda function invocation. So even though there's data in the streams or in the queue or in Kafka, it would not invoke your Lambda function, so it's going to validate against these filter expressions. Some of the filter expressions and the comparison operators that are there are listed here, where you could have different filter expressions where you could check if a value is a null, if it's a specific value. So I was mentioning something about DynamoDB event type. Similarly, you could do a lot of things like for instance, if the location is New York and the day is Monday, so your rule syntax would have multiple keys and the value associated with it. You could even do a or conditional where payment type is credit or debit. So when all of these are done, what happens under the hood is that you have your filter expression, and when the filter expression is validated against the data itself that's coming in, uh, only when, say for instance, your expression is something like location is New York, day is Monday, and the payment type has to be credit or debit. So it checks for all of these values in the data payload that's been sent to the Lambda function, or that's available in the stream or the queue, where it validates these things. And once it validates, it proceeds ahead with invocation. So it's not only string based, but you also could do a lot of numeric based expressions as well, where if it is equal to or greater than equal to, and you could even do things like string based things such as prefixing with something, or if the value exists or does not exist. So all of these combinations could be used in your filter expression. So when you're building out your event filters for your Lambda function, you could have things like, I want to do a DynamoDB insert if the payment type is credit or debit, and if the price is over 2000, something like that, right? So you could do multiple checks like that, so that when your Lambda function executes, it's performing the exact use case that you want to build, rather than what the other mundane or the other sanity checks that you do. Say, for example, your Lambda function would have to do all of this. You get the JSON payload, you check, you do a string comparison, you do a numeric comparison, you do all of these things, all of these checks, and these are conditional statements in your Lambda function code. This could be eliminated with event filter. And the other plus point is that Lambda function is not invoked at all. So I see a question around one important point to understand is, in case of SNS message filtering, the filter is done at SNS and then it works Lambda. Yes. So SNS, when it's working, SNS uses asynchronous based invocation. So whenever the filter is done, it's done by SNS service rather than Lambda service, because all of these event filters are based on the polling mechanism that I was earlier mentioning. So I have a fun demo. Well, let's get to it. I'm a huge Avenger fan, so I just created this front end where there are a couple of APIs, and okay. So there are a couple of APIs where it writes into DynamoDB, it deletes from DynamoDB, and I have even filters set up for insert and delete. And whenever there's yes, we are all Avenger fans. So whenever these operations happen, the Lambda function gets triggered behind the scenes, and it performs a couple of things. So to get started, let me just create some data, BLR, or let me say JP Nagar, that's where I stay. Reported on June 24th. Type that. So while the invocation happens, there are a couple of filters on the type as well, where I'm invoking it based on these types also. So when I do save, yep. So the under the hood, what happened was there was a Lambda triggered, and it sent in an email to one of the disposal we like created. So it says there's a threat that's reported at the location that I mentioned, and the date and time that I mentioned, the date I mentioned at the front end. So when I'm doing something like, say, Srinagar, let me go with party, because who doesn't love a party? And there's party. Because I sent in it as party, there's no email, because my Lambda function is not triggered at all. If you would want to see what the schema is, or what's the template for my complete infrastructure as code, you could see that I have a put item trigger function. And whenever there's a put item trigger function, there is a filter criteria and the filter that's mentioned in Vivek. Is this fine, or should I zoom in a bit? Okay, let me just zoom in. Uh, so what's happening here is that I have a filter criteria, and the pattern is being defined here, where I'm saying it has to be an insert, and the DynamoDB payload that is going to be there has the key threat. uh, Whenever there's an item type coming in as threat, Lambda function should be triggered. Similarly, I do have another trigger where whenever there is a remove action happening, that's exactly when I want the Lambda function to be triggered. So again, back to the demo. Let me just delete it. Yep, delete it. Yeah, so you release something, there is a security breach. So like the shield facility got infiltrated. I just sending some email out there whenever there's a delete, because you don't want delete actions to be done without authorization. So just a small demonstration about how this is done. And back to the slides. Okay, so what you saw in the demo, this is the whole architecture and the flow that's happening under the hood. So I have API key, I have my API gateway there, and which is invoked from my front end. Whenever this happens, it goes to a Lambda function, and Lambda function writes the data into my DynamoDB. Whenever there's a DynamoDB write, or the delete operation that I did, what happens is that it posts these data into my DynamoDB streams. And like you just saw the template YAML from my SAM template, there were two Lambda functions, and they had a filter criteria, one for insert and the type to be as a threat. It checks both of these lambdas, constantly keep polling the streams to check if there's data or not. If there is any data, it validates again with the filter expression that I just mentioned. So it's basically based on the filter criteria. If the filter criteria satisfies, it invokes the Lambda function. And from the Lambda function, I'm using SES to invoke an email to a specific email that I have defined when I deployed the SAM template. So this is basically a small demonstration about how you could use event filtering with Lambda functions. And you could see that there's whole in DynamoDB streams, this whole record is available where you could do patterns based on event type. It could be things on the DynamoDB JSON payload itself or anything else also. So when you have all of these things, suppose if you have global tables, you could even check if the region is in a specific region and then do a lot of things based on that as also. So yeah. When you're defining event filters from console, what you would have to do is all of these are defined as JSONs. So when you're defining the pattern, it's a JSON-based string. So you could see some of these examples here where the pattern is insert and the key should be a car. Similarly, another pattern where it's doing a DynamoDB delete and the old image has the data, has a prefix for the car name. So here also you could see that the patterns are JSON, but a stringified JSON in the pattern itself. Like the filters is an array, you could have multiple such patterns. So whichever pattern is satisfied, it invokes the Lambda function. If none of them are satisfied, it does not invoke the Lambda function. Similarly, like I was walking you through my template, you could define the same on a SAM template. It supports other IAC providers as well, like CDK and Terraform, where you could define your pattern in your IAC itself instead of going to the console. You could even do that from the CLI, where, again, when you're defining it from the CLI, it's JSON in a stringified format. So you saw the demo and you understood that how easy it is to build all of these with event filters. So imagine if you could use something like a Snapchat filter. It makes your pictures so beautiful. Similarly, using filters in your serverless architectures, it makes it more efficient. So whenever there is a filter, it invokes only based on the pattern, and there's no additional cost in this. When we're talking about event filters in Lambda function, there's no additional cost. In fact, this is going to be cost effective because it does not unnecessarily invoke your Lambda functions. And when you're building all of these things, like I was mentioning earlier, if you do it without the filter, you would have to write a lot of conditional statements in your Lambda function code, which developers really hate, right? So, so yeah, you would have to manually handle all of these conditional statements in your Lambda function code. Just for instance, if I had to go back and write the same pattern in my Lambda function, I had to take this value, I have to validate against the DynamoDB JSON payload that's coming in, check if it's an event, check if the event is threat. And another catch here is that all of these events are marshaled, so you would have to you have to work with marshalling the events with DynamoDB specifically. So when you do all of these things in your Lambda function code, you're actually complicating it instead, where you could just define your event filter for your Lambda function and make things more simpler. So that said about event filters. These are a couple of blogs that I wrote in the past about Lambda functions with triggers, DynamoDB as well with event filters. There's also the link to the GitHub repository that I just demonstrated. So you could play around with the SAM template in the GitHub repository. That said, I believe I'm on time, and that's about it, folks.
Great, amazing. So it was a great session. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I guess one of your serverless fans quite active about your presentations and your demo as well. So our community folks and Chris was also there. So yep, he loved the demo. And folks, if you have any question, do please post it in the chat. The speaker will be happy to take it offline as well. So with that being said, Jones, before we hop on to the next session, so what tips would you give for a person who's starting with serverless for the first time, or where do he needs to get started first?
Uh, okay, so one is Lambda function is a good starting point, but again, finding that interest in terms of what type of serverless workloads that you want to work with, right? It could be something, if you're a front end developer, I would recommend starting with Amplify, where you could build all of these things in a more easier way because it's more front end developer friendly. But if you're a person more heavy on the backend side, start playing around on serverless land, which is a place managed by serverless DAs from AWS who are building amazing stuff in terms of tutorials and workshops, and a lot of patterns as well contributed by the community to get started with
Mhm.
serverless.
Great, great. So I'm posting the link to serverless land in the chat. So if you guys want to get started, here's where you want to get started. And also do remember we have a creators club. So whatever you have learned today or you're going to try it out, do learn it, create it, and share it with us. So we'll be happy to share with all the members around there. So Jones, thank you for an amazing, amazing talk. And please stay tuned. And if you have any questions, please do take it in offline as well. So, guys,
Thank you.
with that, I'm happy to have you, and soon I'll be having you in future sessions.
Thank you, Vivek. Awesome
Great.
guy.
See you there. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we are moving to the next part of this serverless event. So I guess we had an amazing starting point talk from Jones. And do remember that we have some social media contests running. All you have to do is whatever you learned today, try to post it in social media and do tag us. And also keep in mind that we are having a server and we are having a creators club initiative as well. So please learn and share it with us. So it can be memes, it can be Instagram reels. I'm already seeing a lot of Instagram stories coming up, so and tweets coming up. So happy to see it. Keep it coming. And if you have any questions, please post it in the chat. And do remember, we have a quiz contest coming up right after this session. The quiz contest is just going to be a couple of questions, and it's only entirely based on the session one and the session two. So if you have been listening actively, you have stand a chance, an amazing chance to win AWS Racks today and also credits if that's the case. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce the second speaker of today, Shushit. Hi, Shushit.
Hello everyone, Namakkam Madurai.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. So amazing. So Shushit is an amazing AWS community person. He's an AWS serverless hero. So you're going to get the sessions right from a hero itself. And he is now head of engineering at Confirm. Well, the quiz is hosted from Confirm's Quiz Hub platform. So I think one of the masterminds behind it is Shushit as well. So the earlier interactions of me being a college student, I was just the second year, third year. So I used to hop in AWS user group Tirupati's serverless Saturdays long back, and I used to be active on Saturday mornings and attending social sessions. So that was one of my earliest interactions with AWS and community and serverless as well. So and I should thank you for that. So you are one of the Kickstarters for that. And right now
Awesome.
I'm happy to host in the same year AWS user group Madurai as one of the speakers. So I think we have all grown a long way, and you deserve that credit for that.
Absolutely, that is great to hear, Vivek. Thank you so much, and super excited to be here today.
Okay, awesome. So I'll leave the stage to you. So let's hop on to the next talk. And Sushil, if you could share the screen, good. I will add it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes. So the next is how the server is going to be real in the real world. It's going to be from Sushil. So I'll be in backstage. If you need anything, just call me up.
Awesome. Okay. So Vanakkam everybody. Uh, Thank you, Vivek, and AWS User Group Mumbai for hosting this amazing Serverless Saturday with great sessions. In the second talk today, I will be talking about serverless in the real world. A little bit about me, as Vivek mentioned, I work as the head of engineering at Confab. I'm also an AWS Serverless hero. I lead the AWS user group Tirupati and host Serverless Saturdays, as Vivek mentioned. Pretty much talking about serverless, that's my passion. And if any of you over here wants to talk about serverless and or AWS in general, just hit me up and be more than happy to have a quick conversation. So, yes, I'm sure you would have heard, you would have seen the meme that serverless means not servers. Servers are there. Yes, that is true. But the other fact is also that serverless is not only AWS Lambda, right? In the previous session, also Jones showed quite a few services and how the event filtering works. So it's not just AWS Lambda. Of course, it is the starting point. So if you are getting started into serverless, that is probably the first service that you would touch, and then you start you get excited, obviously, because it is an amazing service, right? It can do a lot of things with us just providing the code. But again, it is not just Lambda functions. There are so many other AWS services that are serverless, right? So all of them that are mentioned here are all serverless as well. So uh, so it's not just Lambda functions. Once you get in, you will get into the ecosystem, and you'll start observing that you pull in an API gateway, you have a DynamoDB, then probably you want to have GraphQL, so you go with AppSync. So there are a lot of services. So yes, start with AWS Lambda, but don't limit yourself, and you wouldn't also. So these are the other various services as well. So before we proceed further, so let me just quickly share this QR code where you guys can quickly hop in and just a quick poll before we start. So it should take you to this place. Let me share the QR code again. Yeah, I think it's the link is posted in the chat as well. Okay, since the link is there in the chat, let me get here. So as you can see, without me, I can assure you that I'm not refreshing the screen, although this is, okay, here's my hands. I'm not refreshing the screen. As you can see, the counter just keeps on increasing, right? So, I mean, isn't serverless cool? Yes, absolutely, right? I can see the response from the audience as well. So yes, so let me quickly get back to the presentation. How many Lambda functions do you guys think was there as a part of this application? Just paste it in the comment section. One, okay. How many do you folks think the Lambda functions are behind this very, very, very small, trivial application? Yeah, I can see quite a few people saying one. Yes. Okay. Keep them coming. Okay. Someone said 10. Awesome. Okay. So the answer to that question is actually zero, right? So when you're building serverless applications, it is not mandatory that you need to have a Lambda function, right? As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, serverless doesn't mean only AWS Lambda. There are so many other things. And this is basically the architecture diagram of that particular application. It simply has an API gateway and DynamoDB, as simple as that. right? So this is what we call as direct integrations. So you can directly integrate one AWS service to another without having the need to have a Lambda function in the middle. A lot of times we use the Lambda functions just for transportation or transforming the data that we receive, that we want to store or process. In this case, of course, this is a very trivial example, uh, right? But I just wanted to show you that it is possible to build something working without a Lambda function. So here what we do is API Gateway supports native integrations to DynamoDB. So all you can do is create an API. Instead of integrating it with a Lambda function, you can say, okay, my target is a DynamoDB, and this is what I want to perform. So you can perform all the CRUD APIs, create, update, delete, all kinds of things. You can do it. And let's say, for example, you want to do it a little more. You want to have authentication. Let's say you want to build your own Bitly, right, which we did for confub, our internal URL shortener. So we don't have a single Lambda function. All the processing happens just with API Gateway and DynamoDB, because it is just basic CRUD operations, right? So all of that is doable. And if you want to add authentication, add a Cognito authorizer directly in the Lambda function, and boom, you are able to authenticate an authorized request that is coming in, and still no Lambda function, right? Isn't that awesome? Now, so if you guys want to check it out, so this is the GitHub repository which has the code for the same. I did a workshop sometime back for the same. You can just try it out and build this application all yourself. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is AWS AppSync. So AWS AppSync is, so basically in this talk, I'll be covering about the various AWS services which are serverless, which are going to be really helpful for you when you're building real world applications, and talking about the various lessons learned, the challenges, what to expect from the service, and what it is all about. So we will be covering all those things, and I'll be sharing real life use cases and challenges that we faced while we were building confub as well. So the first one is I want to talk about is AWS AppSync. AWS AppSync is basically a managed GraphQL service on AWS, which is serverless, that can help you build GraphQL APIs. Again, if you are someone who's new to GraphQL, a very quick differentiation between REST APIs and GraphQL. So REST APIs, I'm sure a lot of you might have built with API Gateway, which is simple and easy to set up using API Gateway. What happens is using API Gateway, you can create your HTTP endpoints, whereas GraphQL is more towards a single endpoint that your client will interact to, and the client can decide what data to fetch. In this example, as you can see, there's a fishing net which catches all the fish. That is the REST API. Basically, I call the backend endpoint and it gives me everything that it has. Whereas a GraphQL is something where I say, I want this particular fish, and I go fishing just for that, as you can see here. So this is tailored for your data requirements. Like, for example, you have a blogging application, right, where in a particular page of the application, you want to fetch the details of the blog, like the URL, poster URL, the name, the title, the author, and the number of people who viewed it. Probably this is what is required in the landing page, where you want to list all the blogs. Whereas in a specific blog page, you want to fetch the blog details along with the content of the blog itself, right? So that is where GraphQL can be very helpful. The client can decide what data they want. Another pictorial representation, I'm sure a few of you might have observed this on social media if you are working on GraphQL. So it's like this: you ask for a burger in a REST API, you get the entire burger. Whereas in a GraphQL, you can kind of configure what you want. Like, for example, I only want the bun, the patty, and then the bun, and then the lettuce. So you can basically decide what you want from the server instead of a REST API where you get everything, right? So a very simple uh, comparison. So what are the key features that we have with AppSync? The first one is it's highly scalable GraphQL APIs. So as I mentioned, AppSync is an AWS managed serverless service, which means that you do not have to manage anything. All you have to do is just go ahead and configure your APIs, and just like how you would do it in API gateway, you can configure your targets. So here your targets can be many. You can have a single GraphQL endpoint connected to multiple data sources. That is what is called as. So the data sources include your DynamoDB. You can you can connect your RDS. You can connect your Lambda function. How I showed the first application, right? So you can directly query the database. In a lot of APIs, especially the CRUD APIs, which are very basic, and all we need to do is fetch the data from the database. You don't even need a Lambda function. Now, why do you think that that is a good thing, and why does AWS also suggest taking that path whenever possible? Is because, as you might know, if you have worked with serverless, the fact that every Lambda function has something called as a cold start, right? A cold start is basically the amount of time it takes for AWS to provision the infrastructure for your code to run, right? So depending on the programming language, depending on the dependencies that you have in your application, the cold start varies, right? So if you go no Lambda functions, direct integrations like the API gateway to DynamoDB, or AppSync to RDS, or AppSync to DynamoDB, there is no Lambda function to even provision. So basically, you're kind of stepping ahead of the entire cold start problem that a lot of people kind of complain about. So that is a very good advantage, especially if you have very basic, trivial operations that you want to do with the database. So there's no cold start, number one. So basically, your performance is improved, and your latency is very much reduced to how much time it takes to query the data from the database. The second thing is you are not charged anything extra. As you are aware of, there's nothing that is free of cost, right? There's no free lunch, right? So everything on the cloud, not just AWS, anywhere, is charged, right? So you're charged for every single service: API gateway, AppSync, DynamoDB, Lambda function, and most of them are pay as you go. So depending on how much you consume, you're charged that much. Now, if you reduce one service from your architecture, you're not only reducing the latency, but you're reducing the complexity. You're also reducing the cost that you're going to incur, right? Of course, there are some limitations to this approach, as I've mentioned it a couple of times. You cannot do very complex stuff, like for example, I want to there's a complex business logic that you have. It is going to be a little complicated to achieve that, because all of this is going to be written in VTL. VTL is what we write to define these templates on AppSync and API gateway. They're not so very straightforward in terms of, because we are generally used to a programming language, right, which is probably Python, Java, JavaScript, or whatever. VTL is slightly different, so it takes a bit of a time for us to adjust to that particular language. There are a few utility libraries available provided by AWS that we can use, but they are limited to some very simple and basic operations rather than the more complex ones. So if you have a complex one, better to switch to a Lambda function, do all your business logic in whatever programming language of your choice, and then talk to the database or data source, give back to API gateway or AppSync. So that is the more preferred option. The next one, the other key feature of AppSync is the data sync and real-time and offline capabilities. Now, when you guys saw that application that I showed some time back, you saw that I was not refreshing the screen, but it was automatically the counter was increasing, right? How did that happen? That happened because of the real-time capabilities that was built into the application, right? So I had there's something called as a GraphQL subscription. So what a subscription does is a client subscribes to the backend, AppSync, and whenever something changes in the backend, AppSync here in this case automatically publishes a message to all subscribers, and the subscriber can do whatever it wants to do. In this case, what happened was, your browser, whenever you opened that particular question, what it did was it had a subscription. The moment you loaded the page, it created a subscription and subscribed to the backend. So whenever there was an update of a counter in the backend, AppSync automatically pushed the update back to the UI, and on the UI, it just incremented the counter. So basically, this is how it is built. That particular application, it uses subscriptions, which internally uses WebSockets, right? So with AppSync, it is very easy to build GraphQL subscriptions, which enables real-time capabilities for your application. Right. So how, and then the other very important feature that it provides is the offline capabilities. Now, let me tell you how we leveraged this in the real world. Now, we are doing this offline meetup, right? Imagine we are all at some day, meet at Madurai, where we have a lot of people registering for the event, and we have a venue where you people who register are the ones that who are allowed to attend the session. Let's take that as a scenario, right? Which is generally what happens in in-person meetups, especially the paid ones. So what we did was, from Confab, we are an event management platform where we help organizers organize events, right? So we built a very simple application. What it does is it scans a QR code and validates whether the particular participant has actually registered for the event or not, and if so, it'll show that yes, you are registered, and let them in. To give a simple analogy, how you would go to movie theaters if you book a ticket via Book My Show, right? So you buy a ticket, you get a QR code, and then the person at the beginning of the theater will scan the QR code, and then depending on whether it's valid or not, let you in. Right. So a similar thing kind of happens here as well. So what we built was, we wanted to do it real time and offline. So a lot of times what happens is, because you are on the venue location, you might not have great internet bandwidth. Like, we are now sitting at the comfort of our homes, we have a very high speed Wi-Fi network connected to. It's not the case when you go outside. There's network issues, signal problems, and stuff like that. So what we do is, the moment you log into the application, all your data is loaded onto your mobile phone, and what happens is, when you scan the QR code, it kind of checks for the data available locally. Now, all of that is built using Amplify. So Amplify has a database, local database called as Data Store. So what it does is, it internally talks to the data store and checks whether this is valid or not, and that's all. AWS Amplify, the data store as a database, takes care of connecting this to the backend and syncing the data real time. So if you're online, let's say we have 2-3 people doing the check-in, I have to make sure that if you checked in one place, you should not check in the others, or someone else is not using your same QR code and stuff like that, right? So when there are multiple people, I have to make sure that the data is in sync across all the devices, right? So that is where GraphQL came in to help the app sync part. So what happens is, every application is subscribed, and the moment one person is checked in, it automatically publishes that as an event, as an update to all the other devices that are subscribed. Therefore, now all the other devices are in sync, and if someone uses the same QR code and comes again, it will say that this person has already checked in and we should not allow them, right? So all of this is built out of the box. We didn't have to write any single line of code. All we had to do was create a GraphQL subscription, as simple as that. And of course, your business logic, you have to do it, but Amplify and AppSync together are a great combo, where it helps you very easily get started and build all of these capabilities. So offline also, what happens is, whenever you start storing data, it kind of stores in your local, and the moment the application, the mobile, receives internet connection, then we just simply the data store, which is the database on your local mobile, automatically pushes the updates to the backend. Again, you as a developer don't have to do anything. All of it is automatically taken care of. All you have to do in your UI application is write code to talk to your database that is available locally. As simple as that. right? So that is with respect to how we kind of leveraged AppSync in the real world application. The last one is fine grained access control. So here what we can do is every query or a subscription or a mutation. So there are three terminologies, if you are not aware, with GraphQL is basically queries are basically synonymous to your get APIs in your REST world. Mutations are basically your update, create, delete, all your operations that kind of mutate the data in the backend. And subscription is basically the real-time syncing part. So at every single query or mutation or subscription, you can add access saying that, okay, this query needs to be authenticated via IAM. This query needs to be authenticated via API key. So I can decide in my configuration which flow or which path has to have what kind of authentication mechanism, authorization mechanism. So that is very much doable with AppSync. This is kind of how it is in the real world. So we have a mobile app that kind of connects to queries, mutations, and subscriptions that is built on AppSync, and then it talks to the data sources, as I mentioned, DynamoDB, RDS, Lambda. You can even talk to a third-party API, right? So you can do that with AppSync. So, what are the best practices and things to remember? The first thing to remember is, again, if you have built REST APIs on API Gateway, you can create public APIs, which means that there is zero authorization also possible to create. Whereas in AppSync, that is not possible. You cannot create a completely open API. The bare minimum is the API key. So you need to have at least one authorization mechanism and defaulted to API key, and which is kind of a good thing that even if you want to create an open API that someone else wants to consume, have an API key. So you have control of, let's say, for example, someone is throttling it, or you just want to block that person from, making a few calls in the future and stuff like that. So that's a good thing. There's no public access. You need to have at least one authorization. The second thing to remember is the default limit for your expiry of an API key that is generated on AppSync is 365 days. So after that, you need to keep rotating your API keys. Then we have the quotas and limits. So every service on AWS, has some kind of a quota or a limit. So please make sure that you go through it as a developer, as an architect. It is very important for you to understand the quotas and limits of a particular service, so that you're aware, and if at all there's a good amount of scale that comes in, your application is able to handle it without throttling various services in your architecture level. So at any service, not just serverless or any other place, it's always a rule of thumb to look at quotas and limits. Security best practices, make sure you have the correct authorization mode depending on your access pattern, as I mentioned, and add WAF in front of AppSync. So WAF is another AWS service, which is Web Application Firewall. So it kind of protects you from all the threats that we have. Again, will not go deep into this. You can quickly check out. Okay, you can quickly check out what is WAF. So it's always recommended to have WAF in front of AppSync. The last one is turn off introspection schema not discoverable. What this means is, a GraphQL endpoint, when you enter it out, the beauty of GraphQL is it kind of gives you the entire list of queries or mutations that is available for the particular endpoint, right? So you just enter, I mean, you can just search online GraphQL API documentation, or schema validator and stuff like that. You enter a GraphQL endpoint, it will give you the entire documentation, which comes inbuilt with how GraphQL is done. Sometimes you wouldn't want to do that because you don't want to expose all of your endpoints, in this case, queries, mutations, and subscriptions, to everybody public, right? You only want to probably expose it to certain people who are using the application. So always better to turn off introspection. This you can do it in WAF by entering a rule in the WAF. So therefore everybody doesn't get access to what are the list of endpoints, or I mean, when I say endpoints, what are the list of queries and mutations available as a part of your GraphQL service. Now, with respect to AppSync, one thing that I wanted to discuss is the inaction part. So, as Vivek mentioned, from Confab, we have a quiz application, right? So, a couple of years back, before the entire quiz hub thing as a platform we built, we had a simple quiz application, which is again built using AppSync. It was very simple. All you do is you provide your name, email name, and then just log in, and you see a set of questions, you answer them, and you're done with it. And towards the end there's a leaderboard, right? So we had built this for the AWS Community Day virtual edition a couple of years back, where we were expecting uh, uh, thousands of participants across countries joining the event. So this event was the quiz was scheduled in the morning at around I think 9:45, 9:30 it kind of started. We had a welcome note, and then at 9:45 or 10 o'clock approximately, we had the first quiz. Now, this is the graphs from real world. This is what happened a couple of years back, an application that was built with AppSync. What I wanted to show is, as I mentioned, serverless in the real world, see how serverless services help you scale. And most important thing with serverless is not only that you can scale up, but you can scale down also, which is very important that quite a few people miss out, right? So as you can see here, at around 9:30 we started getting requests, and there's a sudden spike, approximately 25,000 requests at around 10-ish a.m. That is when basically the quiz started. So we had close to 25,000 requests coming in at around 10 a.m. So you can see here there's a sudden spike, right? So as I mentioned, this particular application, the quiz application, is completely built on serverless. And guess what we had to do before we knew that, there are so many registrations. We had around 35,000 registrations for the particular event. It was an online event, of course, and people joining from 4 to 5 different countries. So we knew the scale that we were expecting the scale. So what did we do as a development team? How did we handle it, or what did we do? The answer is we did nothing, right? So that is the beauty of serverless, right? So all you need to do is just make sure that all of your service, all of the components of your application can scale. And we built this completely serverless. So it had AppSync, it had Lambda functions, and it had DynamoDB as a data source, right? All of them can scale. So what do we do when this particular event happened and the quiz was happening? Is all sit back, enjoy, and pray, right? And pray that everything goes well and nothing breaks. So that is all we did. We didn't touch the application. We just sat back and let it go through, and just pray that everything works fine. Because I mean, we did some load testing, other stuff, but how can you even test for 25,000 users? I mean, in real world, whatever you do is very different to what happens in the real world, right? And fortunately, everything went well. And you can see here there's a sudden spike, and then after the quiz was over, of course, the quiz, how long does it span? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? So once the quiz was over, there's a sudden drop again, right? It's a nosedive drop back to, again, to some point, almost zero. What did we do here again? Did nothing. Because with serverless, it not only can scale up, but it can scale down too. And as in when the day went through, there were a few quizzes between the days when the tracks, we split it into multiple tracks. Therefore, the load kind of broke down. And you can see whenever there was a quiz, there was a spike. And then after the quiz was over, it went down. So every single time we did nothing. All it did was it automatically scaled up and scale down on its own. So this is a real life example of how we used serverless services for building real world applications. Now, the next important thing that we talk about is scalability. We just saw, right? When you are building application, scalability is a very big talking point, right? I mean, when you have scale, you there's a lot of things that can go wrong, right? Especially with serverless, because you have so many components in your architecture, right? Again, if you are building serverless, it's probably very simple. You have an API gateway, maybe a Lambda function, maybe a DynamoDB. That's it. But in a real world scenario, I'll show you a few as we go along. There are so many components that is out there, right? SQS, SNS, Event Bridge, Cognito, CloudWatch, whatnot. So there are so many services that Kinesis come into picture that kind of makes it a lot complicated. So scalability, you have to make sure that every particular part of your architecture can scale and can cater to the requests that are coming in. So and one of the biggest pain points is the database, right? So a lot of your services probably can scale, but the core of your application is always the database, right? You always interact with the data. You have to make sure that the application database can scale. So it is important to choose the right kind of database depending on your use case and the domain and the scaling requirements for the applications. So what are the few key pain points of databases? The first one is network accessibility. Then we have the cold starts, connection management, pooling, and stuff like that. So when you connect to the database, you have to have a connection manager. You have to make sure that the connection pool is always up and there's enough pool available so that my new requests can consume it. So there are a lot of pain points with respect to when it comes to databases. That is where Aurora Serverless comes into picture. So Aurora Serverless, another AWS serverless service. This is for the database side. So what are the key features of Aurora Serverless? The first one is it is an on-demand auto-scaling database, right? So with Aurora Serverless, what happens is you do not there are basically a couple of configurations. The first and the most important thing is the ACUs, which is basically the capacity units that you configure. So you tell AWS that, okay, I want to have this much capacity. This is the minimum capacity. This is the maximum capacity. That's it, right? AWS will take care of scaling up the database as and when the requests are coming in. You don't have to do anything, right? So that is a very good thing, especially for someone who has a spiky load, right? Because you have unpredictable traffic, and a lot of applications. See, when we talk about serverless, scalability is again a big factor where people talk about can it scale. Of course, serverless means it can scale indefinitely, infinitely, theoretically, right? So a lot of questions come around how what is it in the real world. I'll talk about that as well, how we use it in Confirm. We also use Aurora Serverless. So the second one, which is my favorite, is the use of data API. So the use of data API is basically, as it says, it's an API that is used to connect to the database, perform your queries, and fetch the data from the database without having to create a connection, maintain a connection, and disconnect the connection, right? If you have interacted with the database, you would understand that connection management is a very big thing, right? So the data API kind of solves that problem for us, where it is like a HTTP endpoint, right? I mean, we use the AWS SDK to connect to the database. All we say is, okay, I want to connect to this database. If you use Boto3, again, I'll show the example as well. So the last one is the cost saving. So how cost saving comes into picture is, again, the beauty of serverless is a lot of reasons why, one of the main reasons why a lot of people go to serverless is the cost factor, apart from the scalability part, right? So what is it, right? So when it comes to the cost factor, it is not about how much you save. Sorry, it is not about the costing depending on how much your load is. Rather, it is basically the amount of money that you save when there is no load, right? So let's take a simple example of Confab itself, right? So Confab is an event ticketing platform where people come and buy tickets, right? Similar to Book My Show, right? For a different domain, for events domain, right? So now for Confab as a platform, our peak load would be during the daytime, right? Or maybe towards the night also. But during the time frame of, let's say, 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. or something like that, or 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., so there's very, very minimal load, or sometimes no load also, right? Now during this period, there's nobody using my application, most probably, right? In most applications, right, you have a dedicated geo-specific audience, right? Most applications, not all of them, right? A lot of applications have geo-centric audience, right? So during the night times, most people don't use it, right? So what happens is I only pay. So as I mentioned, it's an auto scaling database, right? And database, by the way, is the big elephant in your costing, right? So that is the most costliest of the one, because it's the most important one, right? So when, as it's an auto scaling database, when there's no scale, the my capacity comes down to the bare minimum, so I'm only paying for that much capacity, right? When there's load, the capacity increases automatically. AWS does that for me, and I pay for that much, right? So during the night times, I am charged very, very minimal, therefore my cost comes down. So it is basically the amount of money that you save when there is no load that comes back to you as an advantage from a costing factor, right? So this is how it is easy peasy. So what you do is, in the data API side of things, data API client, we use Boto 3, which is an SDK. You say, this is the database ARN that I want to connect, this is the secret ARN that I want to connect. Secret ARN is basically where my credentials for the database are, and I simply say execute the statement, select start from orders. That's all. I'm not creating a connection to the database, nor am I disconnecting, right? So that is the advantage. A few best practices and things to remember. So when you are using data API, right? So there's a limitation of 1,000 connections per second and 500 concurrently. So depending on your scale of your application, keep this in mind. If you want to overcome this, you have to architect it slightly differently. You can use RDS proxy and other stuff. But if you want to, again, 1,000 per second is quite a bit, right? For a lot of applications, this is a good enough limit. So you can start with this. When you hit the limits, try to re-architect, right? So don't start with, okay, what will happen if I have 1 million requests per second? First, get it out to the market, make sure that it is actually working and the audience are actually liking it, they are using it. Then think about the other stuff when there's huge scale and stuff like that. Then with Aurora Serverless, there's something called as a scaling point. So you have to understand what is a scaling point. A scaling point is basically a point that is used by AWS to determine whether can I scale up my database or not, or scale down my database. So you have to understand what are the parameters that AWS uses to do this. And there's something called as force scaling. So what is force scaling is basically, irrespective of whether AWS finds a point or not, if there is load, just scale it, irrespective of whether you are able to find it or not. So depending on your use case, understand this and see whether this is applicable for you or not. Data API has a default timeout of 45 seconds. That means your query can run only for 45 seconds by default, but you can increase it. Each transaction should run within 3 minutes. Like any database interaction, you can have transactions here as well, and the transaction should complete within 3 minutes. There's a data size limitation as well, 64 KB per row and 1 MIB per overall data that you can fetch from the database. So as I mentioned, make sure you go through the limits of your application, the service that you're using in your application, and architect for the same. So does Aurora Serverless, whatever I talked about is the Aurora Serverless V1, right? So does it solve everything that we are having the problems of? Not quite, because there are still a few missing gaps with Aurora Serverless. Like, for example, it doesn't have read replicas, it doesn't have global databases and stuff like that. So it was not quite where it has to be for a bigger production enterprise level application. So therefore, Aurora Serverless V2 came into the picture. What does V2 offer? So V2 offers multi-AZ support, read replicas. So basically, like this, you can basically go to any Spider-Man and they would give you the data for you. Like Jones, a big Avengers fan here as well. So I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm wearing a Captain America t-shirt today. So yeah, so basically, Aurora Serverless V2 has a lot more to offer when it compares to V1. So this is compatible with RDS proxy as well. Again, in the interest of time, I'm just slightly rushing through. So does V2 solve everything? Well, not really. So the first and biggest problem that V2 has is what is serverless, right? Serverless means you have to scale down to zero, but serverless V2, Aurora Serverless V2 cannot scale down to zero. So you need to have a minimum of 0.5 capacity units. So that's where it'll come and stop. So it will never go down to zero. So irrespective of whether someone is using or not, you will be charged for it. And it's kind of costlier in comparison to V1 because it gives a lot more features and capabilities. So it's obvious it's costlier. The biggest other missing point is the missing data API support. The advantage that I talk about with API data API, it is not available with the Aurora Serverless V2. We're hoping that it comes out. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, right? In real world applications, this is how your serverless app would look like, very messed up, right? So there are so many components that you have in your serverless application, and it becomes very important for you to understand what is connected to what, and that is where comes into the next service. So this is again a real life example of Confub. So this is the kind of a service that handles the ticketing side. So basically, if you guys register on Confub, this is the kind of flow that you go through. I guess it's not really readable, but you don't have to go through much into it. What I wanted to showcase is there's so many components out there that is kind of talking to each other, and it's kind of tangled and stuff, right? So that is where Event Bridge comes into picture. It kind of helps you streamline the entire event driven architecture. So Amazon Event Bridge is a serverless event bus that makes it easier to build event driven applications, right? So this is what we saw is the hub and spoke model. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of design patterns. So there are so many modules in the event ticketing flow, right? Either Book My Show or anywhere. This is kind of the standard, right? So you have a checkout, you have some payments service, you have registration service, user management, there's some app data. So all of these come into picture, and all of them have to interact with each other. As you can see, there are so many tangles, right? So how we can kind of get rid of this is that is where comes the Event Bridge. So what happens with Event Bridge is Event Bridge kind of sits in the center, and your API just there's a Lambda function, of course, for the reducing of the complexity of the diagram. I kind of removed it. So what happens is when the incoming request comes, some basic validation happens, and it pushes a message into my Event Bridge, right? So let's say you purchased a ticket, right? So once you purchase a ticket, what would happen is we would get an event, and that event is pushed to Event Bridge, and there are multiple services that kind of are listening to these events, right? So in Event Bridge, I can define a rule, and depending on the incoming request, I can divert the input to the particular service depending on the configuration of the rule, right? So depending on the event that comes in, I can trigger my checkout service, my user management service, my registration service, my app data, my payment service, whatever I want. All right. Depending on the incoming event that is pushed to Event Bridge, I can trigger what I want. Now, as you can see, the tangling that you had here is kind of replaced with the hero in the middle, and he is kind of, or rather, it is kind of, directing everything that happens in the application. Therefore, there's a not so basically what happens, the advantage here is that each independent service that is not aware of the other, they're not directly contacting or pushing or communicating with each other. Let's say, for example, I get a message and the checkout service is triggered. The checkout service does whatever it has to do. There's a Lambda function, there's DynamoDB, it has to do whatever it has to do, and it pushes a message back, and that message is picked up, let's say, for example, by the registration service. So these both of them may not need to know that the other one exists, All they have to do is listen to events, publish events, so that the other one pick it up and does that, right? That is what we have with event bridge. So a few patterns that we use in confab as well is the static event flow. Again, with event bridge you can define rules, as I mentioned, right? So what happens is, in the rule I can say that, okay, when I'm getting an event, that event, what should I do? Should I transform that event and give it to the consumer, or what do you want me to do? Do you want to pass it as is and stuff like that? So the first one is the static event flow. So what happens is, whenever there's a registration that happens, I want to notify someone that, okay, the registration was successful, right? The internal team or the organizing team and stuff like that. So if you have a Slack configured, the moment the checkout service publishes an event, there's another service, the notification service, that listens to it, and the event bridge will trigger that, saying that, okay, there was a registration for this event. So that's all this service needs to know. This service needs to know for which event, what was the registration. It doesn't need to know everything. So this is the static event flow, where it simply says registration successful, and Slack will send a message to the particular channel or whatever it is. The next one is the filtered event flow, right? So the filtered event flow, let's say for example we have the payment service. So the payment service is pushing events to event bridge, and depending on the my rule, right, I can configure the rule in such a way that the settlement service, so settlement is basically how we handle the money and stuff, right? So this service only needs to know about the money part. It doesn't need to know who registered for them, right? Whereas this service only needs to know what is the registration details, like name, email, and stuff like that. They don't need to know which bank or credit card or debit card they used to purchase, right? And then so this is the failure service, which basically notifies the internal team for any failures. Now, as you can see here, there is one input that is kind of filtered out and transformed into something that the target service is looking for, right? So with event bridge you can filter out, transform the data in a way that you want, and push it to the particular services, so that the service doesn't get unnecessary information, sometimes sensitive information as well. Like for example, this service, payment is a sensitive information, right? So this service doesn't need to know that, and you shouldn't pass on that, right? So then the other is a transformed event flow. Like for example, you have a webhook that you have configured that you want to trigger some third party service. So what you do is, depending on the events emitted from these services, EventBridge can transform it and trigger the webhook depending on how the webhook is expecting the payload to be, right? A few things to remember is when you're configuring your events, there are multiple ways you can do that. One is matched event. So basically whatever you get, you pass on as is to the consumer. Part of matched event, a piece of the event that you get, you want to send it. A constant, so irrespective of what the event is, I received an event, I tell someone that, okay, this is the constant. Like for example, the registration successful part that we saw. Transformed is an example for the webhook, right? So depending on your downstream consumers, decide what your event bridge rule should be and your filtering should be, so that you can transform the data that the downstream services requires. Filter out the data that is passed to the consumers, especially the sensitive information or PII data, personally identifiable data. Like for example, you're calling a third-party service, right? So you shouldn't pass the payment information to the third-party service because they don't even need that, right? So make sure that you know what is the data that is being that is flowing across, and have a strict filtering of the same. Standardize the event structuring. So as you can see, there are multiple services that are emitting, that are consuming, right? So there's no standard that AWS kind of suggests or anything, but make sure that the JSON data that you're pushing is kind of a standard in some way, at least for your application, so that all consumers and producers follow the same standard and it is easy to do. And with EventBridge, there's one thing which is at least once delivery. That means you have to build for idempotency. So what is idempotency? Idempotency means that your application has to handle scenarios where if the same input comes, we should not process it again. I mean, the processing should be the same, right? That is basically idempotency, right? So use EventBridge for microservice communications, whereas SNS for internal service communications. and look at functionless integrations wherever possible. Like I showed you the webhook approach, right, where you can directly trigger the endpoint. Look at that. As we saw, wherever possible, try to get rid of your Lambda functions so that you can directly have the integrations possible. You can save cost, the latency can be reduced, and one less component in your architecture. So the last part is the step functions that I want to cover. So step function is again your orchestration service. As you saw, right, we had so many components. How do we make sure that all of them work together? Right. Again, in the interest of time, I'm kind of rushing through. Is with step functions, you can do orchestration, parallel processing, and everything. Let me quickly show you how we do it in Confirm. Right. So this is what we do with our one of our services. Again, I don't think it's kind of readable for you guys, and I can't really zoom in, I believe. Yeah, I can't zoom in because this is a PPT. So yeah, okay, yeah, thanks, Vivek. So what happens is this is a service that is used for yeah, settling money to the organizer, right? So on Confab, people register for the events, people pay money, and we have to give that money back to the organizer, right? So this is the kind of service that is used for that. It is built completely on step functions. Again, step functions is another AWS serverless service that is used for orchestration. As you can see, it is like a flow chart, right? So I kind of can configure that. Okay, step one, do this. Step two, do this. If step two's response is this, do this, and stuff like that. Like for example, this part where I'm checking whether even there's some data that is processable or not. If yes, do something. If no, do something. So a lot of activities that you can do with step function, like for example, this choice state, right? So I can decide whether to take option A or option B depending on the response of my previous state, right? So the biggest advantage of step functions is the fact that a lot of complexity with respect to how you're calling one service to another is lifted from your application to the cloud provider, which is AWS here, right? So step function has the context of what needs to happen one after another instead of your application saying that, okay, I have three Lambda functions. First call Lambda 1, then Lambda 2, and then Lambda 3. So instead of my code having that, I have that in the step function so that it is very much easy for me to extend if I want to do it in the future without really enhancing the code. And the other biggest advantage is the built-in retry capabilities, built-in catch that you can have, error handling that you can do. So let me take you one simple example here. So there's this one function called make payout. So what it does is triggers the payment gateway to initiate a payment, right? So what we can do is when we call our payment gateway, we initiate a payout, and the payout may process or succeed, right? Because it is not even in our hands. The payment gateway, Razorpay, Paytm, or whatever those guys are, I tell them that, okay, I want to transfer 1,000 rupees, let's say, to Vivek, right? So it's a bank transfer, right? So it can go through, it may fail, all of those things, right? So if at all it fails, then I have a catch block which says payment failure, and I can do whatever I want to do, right? So I will probably trigger an email to Vivek saying that, okay, I tried to initiate a payment to you, but it failed. So what we are going to do is we're going to retry. So the retry also is built into step function. So what happens is we retry one more time. So you can configure how many times you want to retry before we actually fail it. And all of that, you don't have to write it in your code. You can do it at the step function level, right? So this is the biggest advantage of step function. A lot of complexity with respect to the flow, error handling, retries, catches, and everything across services can be handled at step function instead of at the code level. So that is, I know I've kind of rushed through in the last couple of slides because of the interest of time. So a few points to remember. There are a couple of kind of workflows, which is standard or express. So make sure you choose whatever is required for you. And again, you can use timeouts. As you can see, there's what you can do is you can also have a timeout in your tasks. So you can use that in your workflow depending on your use cases. So Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from my side. Uh, I hope it was something useful for you guys, especially who are starting with serverless or probably not have experienced a lot of these, these different AWS services. I hope I've given you a basic, kickstart into the service and consume it. So this is Rushit. You can reach out to me anytime for anything on serverless. So this is my Twitter handle. You can reach out. I'm available on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. That was an amazing talk. So I guess we touched based on, I guess, a very good beginner Kickstarter session, I would say. So gives a complete horizon of what AWS has to offer in terms of serverless. And very, very interesting to see what sort of work you do in Config and how you are bringing in your serverless expertise into Config to make that product amazing product. So I guess we have one live proof that the quiz up is one coming up next away, and really interesting to see what goes on behind the scenes. So thanks for that. Ashutosh. So anyone who, I guess, if anyone wants to start writing a blog about serverless, I guess this session for you would be the great kickstarter. So tune in, learn the concepts. You could write a blog as well. So we have a couple of questions. Probably you can take it right now.
Yeah.
I'll have only one or two questions. So few got answered in chat, but I will bring it up for the interest of people. So is
Okay.
event bridge something related to so Elastic Load Server?
No, 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 not really. So EventBridge is basically what you can do is in EventBridge, you can create event buses and you can configure rules in the event bus that can kind of route your traffic depending on the incoming event. So an event balance load balance is basically depending on the traffic, right? You kind of decide which route to take. That is not the case here. It's not dependent on the traffic. It is kind of dependent on the input that comes in and the rule that you're configuring. And here the rules are all with respect to the data. So as I showed the example, if the incoming event is from, let's say, for example, the checkout service, I want to configure, I want to trigger the registration service because once the checkout is done, I have to register the particular participant in my database, right? So they are very different. Then here it is kind of used for redirecting the input to the proper target depending on your rules.
Great. I guess, yeah. I guess that answers the question. So I guess even Avinash and Sankara added a couple of more points to it. So you could check that in the comments as well. So going on to the next question. So from Sankara is that did the quiz application you have shown used any kind of caching with AppSync?
All right. So the one that I showed you, we didn't use any caching. It was direct interaction with DynamoDB. But there are a lot of caching services, of course, available, which is Redis. Then we have this new Momento that's coming up for serverless caching. The application that I showed, at least, we didn't have caching with AppSync. Yeah, we didn't.
Perfect.
I mean,
Okay.
we directly did with DynamoDB. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a lot of feedbacks for you. So I'm just running it through. So Gopal and Sanmi Muthukumar, they all loved their session. So as well as me. So if you could share, we'll be actually consolidating all the presenter slides today so that it will be available for the members to go back and check what happened. So thanks, Sushil. Thanks for taking your time to interact with our members today. It was an amazing session. Thoroughly loved it and really love your work at Concord as well.
Thank you so much. I'll be around. If you guys have any questions, you can post it in the channel, and I'll try to answer them.
Perfect. Yep.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So moving on, we have a quiz contest coming up. So which is, if you guys have been tuned in and learning about serverless, now we have a quiz coming up. Just 4 questions. The top person who wins this quiz is going to get an amazing swag from AWS. So all you have to do is scan the QR code or go to the link which is available here. You could also see the link coming up in the chat as well as in your this one. So feel free to join the quiz and just 4 questions. Whoever answers the question first with the fastest correct answer with the fastest time will be able to crown as a winner. So I'm starting with the quiz in a couple of minutes. I'm allowing a few people to join in as well. So let's see how many people are there. So all you have to do is scan the QR code and jump in. We are going to soon start with the quiz here. So I'm starting with the quiz right away. So have you all joined in? I guess I'll drop the link in the chat as well. So if you're not yet joined, all you have to do is go to quizzup.app and you will be able to join with the link here. So yep, a couple of folks already here. So make sure that you answer the question first with the shortest time, and you'll be able to win a quiz as well. Win the quiz. So folks, you can find the quiz link in the chat as well. So we have 10 members over here. Couple of more joining in. Yes, I'm giving a last one more minute for you guys to hop in, and then we are going to start it. So remember, it's going to be a tough competition since only one person is going to win it, and it's just 4 questions. All you have to do is select the right question with the fastest time. Yes, away we go. I'm starting with the first question. All you have, I guess you now have your screen in front of you. You don't have to look at what's going on the live stream. Just look at your mobile and answer the question when it pops up. You don't have to refresh. Please kindly do not refresh, and make sure that you answer the question once it pops up. So we have 15 members joining in, and we are starting it right away then. The first question on your screen incoming in a couple of seconds. Yes, the Lambda functions which uses DynamoDB streams are powered with which mechanism? Guys, the stream which you might be seeing in YouTube is a couple of seconds delayed, so please look into your mobile to answer your questions. So is it event-driven, polling, both option A and B, or none of the above? Okay, so a lot of people got it wrong, but the right answer is polling. So Lambda triggers with DynamoDB streams uses polling mechanism to check if there is any items on the stream. So two people got it right. So Sankara and Shani are leading the quiz with 1 point each, but Sankara is ahead of certainly because of the fastest time he has taken. Moving on to the next question, please make sure that you look into your screen and answer it quite easy. Giving a couple of more seconds to hop in. The next question on your screen in a couple of seconds. So get it right this time. How are the event filtering patterns defined? Is this a JSON, or it is a simple string, or it's a string of JSON, or it's an array of JSON? So 10 more seconds left. Here we have. So how are the event filtering patterns defined? If it's a JSON, or is it simple string, is a string of JSON? Oh, that's only one person got it right. And who is it? It's none other Sankar who's topping the quiz right now. It's a string of JSON. So when Jones was explaining with a code base, you would have noticed it. But anyways, the event filtering patterns are JSON structures defined in a string field format to a pattern keyword. That's the explanation of today. This one. Make sure you don't switch your tabs or go to another profile or refresh. So let's hop in for the next question. So the third question coming up. So what is the maximum limit for expiry of API key in AppSync? So if you have noticed in the best practices of AppSync, this was very well evidently explained. Is it 7 days, 180 days, 256 days, or which option would it be right? So we have Sankara and Sami leading the quest right now, with Sankara leading the top position. Here we go. Wow, I guess this is quite a good number of people who have answered it. 10 of them got it right. It's 365 days. And again, Sankara tops in with 3 points. He got 3 out of 3. Sharmi catching up with Sankara with 2 out of 3, and followed by one question each down below. So last question, Shankara and Sharmi is going to be a tough fight. If Shankara gets the next question right, he is crowned to be a winner. But Sharmi hopes Shankara got the next question wrong and she answers it better and fast, and maybe that's the way Sharmi can win. So going to the last question here. What does ASL in step function stand for? AWS Step Functions language, states language, states Amazon state language, or it's an AWS state language, or it's an Amazon steps language. Which is it correct? It's going to be tough and tight. Let's see who's going to be the winner of the first quiz coming up. The results will be up in a minute. Oh no, it's only 2% who got it right. So ASL stands for Amazon States Language. So Sankara has nailed it with a perfect score of 4 out of 4. And we have the leaderboard. So Shankara wins today's the first quiz of today's talk. We have one more quiz coming up, and congrats to Arvind and Sami with 2 points each, grabbing the second and the third position. So, guys, we have one more quiz. If a participator couldn't get it right this time, we have one more quiz coming up at end of this session. So, end of uh, the third and the fourth session. So, here we go. What you have to do is stay tuned, ask more questions, tweet about it, and you also have a social media contest for you to win as well. So, congrats for and thank you for participating. Let's move on to the next session, and I'm happy to invite Avinash to today's talk. Hi, Avinash, how are you doing?
Hey, hi, doing good.
Great. How are you enjoying community day, serverless events so far?
Yeah, it's so going so good. Like lot of serverless. I hope I will also join the serverless journey.
Oh, yes. Amazing. So, Avinash is an amazing AWS community person. He's also an AWS community builder. So, over to Avinash. I'm very excited for your upcoming talk. If you could share your screen as well, we could.
Yeah, I'll just. I hope my screen is sharing.
Yes. Yes. So Avinash has an amazing experience of over 12 years. So if you have any doubts, do reach out. And he's very active in his YouTube channel as well. So over to Avinash for his next session. And guys, we have both a quiz coming up in next couple of at the end of 2 sessions, and also we have social media contest running. With that, I hand it over to Avinash for the continuation. And if you have any questions, please do drop it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Vivek. So, hello, folks. I think today, I think a lot of serverless. Like I'll also join in that serverless one, but little bit different kind of things we will talk about it. It is about like how we will ship your website. The website can be WordPress, can be your Node.js or any kind of Jenkins application or any application which Docker image is available. How we can do it with the just AWS Fargate. AWS Fargate is serverless kind of support, right? That we will talk about it. Before, I think Vivek has already introduced me to that, so I will not take that time. I directly jump into what we'll cover today in this session, right? Why this is required. I will just walk through on the terminology like WordPress, Docker, ECR, ECS, which we are going to showcase in the demo also. And of course, the main thing is the Fargate. We'll talk about it. And then we'll have a small demo, like how the step by step to do it. Okay. So let's understand this, like why this is required. So let me tell you one of the use cases, this part. So I was the one helping one of my friend to host a website on a EC2 instance. He was having a WordPress website, and then suddenly he find out, okay, he wanted to have a cron job also, and there are many cron jobs he wanted to do it. The only reason having the cron job in the same EC2 machine, you will consume a lot of the memories, and that will impact your website performance. So for that, you can keep everything maybe outside the cron job. You can keep it by using the same replica of server and keeping another EC2 machine, but that will not yourself solve the problem, because in while doing the EC2 hosting, right, you will not achieve always the 100% utilization of your CPU. Okay, so even if the cron job is getting used, right, but if the website will not automatically use the 100% of the usage, then you will end up paying the more money which is not getting utilized. Okay, to solve this problem, the thing is getting easy by giving the AWS service called Amazon ECS and the automation tool called Fargate, which help you to containerize your application and allocate the space which is required for particular task, and that ensure that everything will 100% get utilized, and you will only pay what amount of storage, what amount of memory you're using it, right? The resources which you use, only you will pay for it, and that's what this is required. So while was the solving the problem for my friend, I came across this part. I have like done small study on that part, and I really like this way to do it. So like going to share this same journey with you. So let's understand this terminology. So in this demo, I'm going to talk about like how to host WordPress. Like because I'm taking an example of WordPress website. I'm a big fan of WordPress also. Being a PHP developer. So WordPress is kind of a free and open source content management system where it's written in the PHP language and support the MySQL and MariaDB database, where you can create your blog, create your website, create your e-commerce website. Anything can be done in the website, and for that to add, you don't require technical knowledge also. If you have the hosting provider, you can just host the website on using the WordPress by just a single click. That's how the WordPress works. And if you want to override and so anything like add extra functionality, okay, there is options is always be there to override the particular things. That's how the WordPress works. And it's very pretty famous in across the globe, the WordPress for the content management, blogging website. Now, let's understand the interesting things. I use this image very frequently in my one of the talk when I always talk about containerization or anything, right? So this is a kind of image. I think in morning talk you have seen a lot of the food. Even Sushi's talk also was the fish and everything. Yes, I also bring the one other food topic. So this is like an instant Maggi noodles, right? Why this picture is important here? Like let's understand this, like why it's required here. So how instant noodles work? It is like you will have everything in the ready-made package where you don't need to worry about how much salt is required, how much masala is required there, what kind of flavor you want to add it, how much quantity is required. Everything is predefined, how much water to be also added. You just have to open up the package, pour into your vessel, and just heat up the water. Okay, and then you will be ready to eat this noodle, right? This is how they exactly work. So this means that there is a less effort to cook this food. It is an instant food, right? Similar way, a Docker also work like that. A Docker help us to the creation of the your application in the containerized way, where that container can be used anywhere, any of the operating system, without doing much effort. So whatever is required, you create a package at the first time, and that package can be used multiple times. And that's how the Docker used. I think it's very familiar word. Everyone know about Docker, but this is how I relate the Docker. When I word Docker comes in mind, I always keep, oh, this is a instance noodle package, which help us to reduce the time, reduce the effort also. That's the developer friendly tools. Next is the Amazon ECR. Amazon ECR is the Elastic Container Register. This is kind of the same like a Docker hub, okay, where you host your Docker images, Docker kind of like, and the public images will be there. These are the Amazon services which provide to host the container registry, where you can upload the container image and you can use it by using the URI, and that can be using a private, can be a public also. So it's like easy to store, share, and deploy your container software anywhere. That's how the ECR works. So we're going to use this ECR also in our demo. Next is the Elastic Container Service. That is ECS. Okay. So ECS is the cluster services where you can club together all your services or your hosting or maybe application inside the containerized. It's kind of the encapsulation of that particular theme where you can define the theme. Okay, what kind of application you can use that particular cluster, and that can be used in a particular cluster. And ECS provide a serverless. Okay, because why serverless? It is like as everyone talk about, right, in Jones and everyone. Even if it's serverless, its server is there, but no headache on the developer, no headache on who are going to deploy it. It can be managed by the containerization tools or particular services. That's how the serverless work. So there are few components to be considered in ECS like cluster, service, task definition, and containerization. So as I said, cluster is the encapsulation of all the services and the tasks. Okay, when I say service, right, service is like, okay, which application I'm going to host it, whether it's a WordPress, whether it's something like that, I will give a definition of service. Okay, I have this service. So tomorrow, if you're going to build any booking application, you can create a service for the booking service. Okay, so it is like giving a naming convention to your packages. And after that, inside the service, we are going to host the task. So in service, if you have a two functionality called get API, called put API, like that, you can have a different task for the different API. Similar way, if you're going to host the WordPress website, you can have a hosting, that's the front end application, which is right inside the one task. The cron job you can put in the inside the one task, where you can utilize a different memory based on the usage, where cron job can have a more memory, where the WordPress website can have a lesser memory. Accordingly, you will ensure that you will utilize the 100% of your CPU, and you will not end up paying the more amount of money which is not get used. Okay. Task definition. Task definition is like your part of the package where you will define whenever I'm going to run the task, whenever I'm going to create a task, what should be my predefined memory, predefined storage, what will be my Docker container image has to use it, what will be my VPC, everything will be predefined under one template. That definition is a reference for launching the task part. Then the containerization. Containerization is used to always listen to the task health. Whenever the task getting drainage or scale up or maybe some error, you will keep listening it and give an instruction to, okay, run the new task. One task is already failed, is required, because you are going to mention what kind of, like, how many minimum task is required, what is the maximum task is required, what can be threshold is required. Okay, that parameter you are going to mention it, and based on the threshold, it keeps listening to the particular thing and act upon it. That is why it is a serverless. It managed by the AWS, not by us. Okay, because you have to just give a parameter. Okay, this is my parameter. I will go on that and do it there. Now, next is the Fargate. Okay, Fargate is like a very interesting part. Okay, it is kind of orchestration tools, similar like a Kubernetes, but it is not comparison. You cannot go to the comparison part. But how Fargate work exactly, right? It build a container image, it define the memory and compute resources, and then particular application will run into the particular services or task, and it play around it, like based on your auto scaling rules, what I mentioned just now, right? Minimum task, maximum task, and threshold of your memory usage. It play the role of the particular Fargate. And Fargate always used with the ECS and AKS both. It is not only AKS, but here only we talk about only ECS part. That is why the Fargate work. Fargate also no need to pay anything over Fargate, even for ECS also. In both the service, you have to pay only for the resources you means that if you're going to use a memory, if you're going to use a storage, that only you will have a thing to be done. Okay, that's how it exactly it's work. And Fargate is very like excellent choice for people who want a convenience. Okay, people who want to run your application inside a Docker containerization in serverless environment, and that's the best choice for the Fargate, because people who want to have a relaxed mode, okay, let AWS do everything, they can choose the Fargate part. But there are few things to be considered while choosing a Fargate over the other services, right? So it's like This will help you to take a decision or architecting your solution, which I came across while doing this work. So it's like, how much control do you need over your underlying infrastructure? Means that, are you okay to do control by yourself, or you want it to control by the AWS does for you? Then these questions question answer will help you to take a decision. Okay, whether I should go Fargate or some other services. Are you willing to manage EC2 instance? So as I said, right, if EC2 only you are going to host EC2 instance, then you have to manage by yourself. Like if the cron got exhaustion memory, you have to get another EC2 machine and run the EC2 machine on the cron and allocate a specific memory and then accordingly do that. Okay, I like that it will work. Second will be, how much flexibility do you need? Like it is like how much scaling. If your application doesn't have a need of the scaling exponentially growing or exponentially down also, you don't require the flexibility. You know that, okay, my visitor will be like a very average and it will be always be a same straight line graph. Then no need to worry about using the target. But if you have flexibility in user, it will keep up and down and you don't know, you are unsure about the load, right? Then it's the best choice for you to use it. Okay, and of course, very much important parameter, that is how much budget you have. Like, what is your budget for it? If you have to spend money, like you go with the and you have to sit relax, then the Fargate is the best choice for it. Because as I said, it's a pay as go on service. Like it will ask you to pay only for the resources which you use it. These are the main things to be considered, and this will help you to decide whether to use a Fargate or not Fargate. I have done small short videos, so I can share in the end of my session that when how it can become for this one. Let's talk about the demo today. Let me share my demo screen. ECS. Yeah, so this is the ECS container service. We are going to do here the our demo part. Let's get started with this service. Okay, first we'll go to the create cluster here. We'll give a demo name, AWS UZ, or the serverless day demo. I'll keep this default things, not to do with anything part. That's why I try to explain it how easy to host a single website using this Fargate and ECS, right? No need to worry about much part on like this will be optional part. It will copy the same the cluster name as it you mentioned it here, and here is the option is there whether it should choose a Fargate, EC2 machine, or external. That can be later be configurable. But we are going to talk about only Fargate part, not about EC2 instances part here. So we'll go with the serverless click here part. Here it will be monitoring options, whether you require a container inside or not, you can enable it with, it is optional what. And the tags, we will tag is only for the meta information to know that, okay, who is using it, what team is managing, what project is belong to, that help us to give a tag part. So let's go and create the ECS cluster. Yeah, so this is link progress. You can see the progress inside the view cloud formation template. So let me share the whole things. Maybe stop sharing and I'll share the whole screen so it'll be easy to share. I hope my site is visible. Yeah. So this is the cloud formation flow where you can see the progress of that. This is getting created and you can keep refreshing things. Now things are getting completed. You can come back to the ECS cluster here and see that this is a blue to become a green. Now it's ready to use it. You can see that. Now we will go to create a task definition because ECS is required a task definition. We'll create the first new task with the definition. You can create with the JSON also, but there is a UI is provided there. You can go and create task. Before creating task, I'll just showcase that there are steps to follow for the creating a ECR container. So let's go to the ECR container. I have already have a Docker container pushed to the ECR. Let me sample WordPress website is there, but these are steps to do it. Yeah, you can go to the ECR container here. Okay, create a private or public repository, give a name to the particular ECR, and once you create it, you will be able to see this kind of URL, and that you can copy it. And if you want to push your local container image, we can push it by following this step, like ECR login get password and Docker login one. What you to do, you just have to go to the Docker Hub WordPress website here and download this full WordPress and just push by using this command, like this ECR login password command, and you will be ready with this image. I hope I'm able to showcase all the screen. Okay, I think. Okay, this is the one ECR part, and then once we complete going to ECR, we can just copy this URI, and this URI you can test it when you're using it. Yeah, let's give a name of the serverless task day feature and give a name of the work container, what container belong to. I'll give a name of the workplace. I'll copy the URL here. And if you want to give a private registry like other than your AWS, you can click and give it a particular ARNS. So our is not private registry authentication, not required because inside the AWS we are doing it. So that is not required. This is a default port we are going to use like 80 port, where we'll have about send the 80 port and a protocol will be the HTTP one. And here the environment variable, if anything environment variable you have to pass while the spinning up the instances, you can always add that part. But in our demo is just like hosting a website, right? So we will not look into that particular thing. In health checkpoint, you can pass the command to be check health check whenever there is a task is getting running it or maybe getting it up. Okay, whether your task is healthy or not, that you can keep it along with that. So based on the application, if any particular application have init.php file or WordPress has the config.php file, that you can pass it like a curl command and pass it here the health checkpoint. Others are still all optional parts, so we'll not talk about that part, and we'll go to the next one here. The by default, the Fargate option will select here, and we'll choose the Linux. There are multiple options are Windows and Linux. We'll choose the 64 here, and here, as I said, I have to choose only CPU and memory here. I'll go for the lesser one to avoid more cost, and here I'll go with the 0.5. Okay, let me check out the 0.2 CPU. Yeah, now it's compatible. Okay, here a task role can define the ECR task execution role. I'll showcase what is there inside the execution of task role. ECS execution role. Yeah, this is the actually default policy which I'm using it here, ECS task execution policy, which has a get authorization token, batch check availability, download for layer, batch get image, create log stream, and put log event. Like that it has. Okay, and that going to use it here. So you can just select this policy and create a new role and attach it here. This will be by default AWS PC mode, and this is not going to use it because simple website can use it. If you are going to use any website which requires some storage, you can mention the storage, but minimum storage you have to give it 21 GB and maximum 200 GB one, and you can keep adding the volumes if it's required. Here it will have a log collection of the CloudWatch under this ECS volume, and you can always trace out all the executions log and particular things here. So others are optional. We go to the next here. We'll just cross check everything is set up properly. The image, URL, and everything is there. Let's go to the create one. Now it's getting created and successfully created. Now this clarity button is available here. Deploy a particular task under the ECS cluster. Okay, create a service. Let's click on the create service here. Select the cluster, serverless demo. We'll go for the property capacity provider, which will have going to a Fargate one, not a launch type one. The launch type has a different option to be there. Okay, Fargate and we'll go with the default one. Yeah, we'll give a service name, serverless demo. We'll keep a desired count of a task is 1 because it's small website just for a demo purpose. Whenever you are going to host your website based on your expectation, you can do that particular things. Okay. Here we'll have a deployment option. Okay, as I mentioned, right? What is the minimum running task percentage should be there? What is the maximum that should be there? That threshold you can put it. Here we'll have a failure detection. What should be happen when there is a failure? If there is a rollback or whether it's a cloud alarm, whether to up a new task, that you can decide based on the failure detection. I'll keep it the by default one. Networking side here will select the VPC group here by default, whatever is there, but we will create either a default one. I have created a forget demo. If you can create a new also, that's not a problem. You can select the type of particular rules here. As it's about demo, right? I'll keep it all default demo and anywhere, and we'll give a security name is serverless day demo edgy. Security group for load balancing. We will not use it. Okay, I'll just have a separate one. Then we'll create it this one. Okay, let's wait for to see this one. It is creating. It takes some few time. You can always track your status of your task creations, like how it's happening, gate creation progress, that particular things. You can keep checking out. So if any error also, you will get to know, okay, if there is something error available. So keep watching it. Now you can see, yes, service is getting created. We'll wait for tasks also getting created. It's in a pending status. It's running the right one. Yeah, it is running now. Let's go to here. We'll have a public IP address here. You can open the public IP here. And yeah, here is our WordPress website. It's visible. You can just go and select it, set up your WordPress website using a DB name, gradation, and you are there. In this like a demo, right? Everything is like MySQL, the PHP hosting, everything is inside the one container only. No need to have a different RDS part. You want RDS, you can select different Docker image which will have a RDS connection part. These are the very simple way to shift your website using AWS Campus. I hope this is very simple and you will also try it out. That I'm looking forward to see that any kind of question around it. So let me stop my screen and share the yes, and that's about my demo. This is a reference link. I'll post the referencing in the YouTube channels comment part. For your reference, I have written the detailed blog about it, how to do it part, and I have a recorded video also. I will share that video. So if you have for more references part, and the official document for AWS, forget about understanding what is there, what exactly feature is there. And thank you. You can feel free to connect with me. This on LinkedIn. This is my QR code. Also, I do a YouTube recording. I create some informative YouTube short also, which link with the real life example and technology way to understand and easy to remember a part. And I keep releasing the video every week as a weekly learning series. So feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll post my link in my YouTube channel. Thank you.
Sorry, my mic was
Yeah.
muted. So great session, Avinash. So yeah, I guess it's a very good starter for anyone who's wanted to host a website immediately, and like it's a very simple and effective walkthrough. So I'll do share the links with the blogs which you have already written, so people can go ahead and start working on it. So, but before we hop on to the next session, Avinash, I'd like to have a couple of questions with you. So, if you, from your experience, so what do you suggest that for a person who wants to start, not just with serverless or with anyone who wants to start with AWS, what would be your first recommendation?
Okay, so if anyone want to start with the AWS, right? My first recommendation always be there. take out any HTML website or any sample website or template from the W3 school or anywhere as the HTML website. Okay, as index or HTML. Go first with the static website hosting by using the AWS S3. That is also another serverless. Okay, and see how you can host the website using the AWS S3, where there is no server required. Still, you can host a website. You can view the pages without even paying a money also. That will help us to strive with how exactly the hosting work. When you understand this part, right, then you can jump on to the hosting a website on the EC2 instance while creating EC2 instance like that way. Like if you are even, you can use this the way which I shown in the Fargate, right? Even if you have the 0.5 RAM and the 0.5 GB of the storage also, that will not cost much part of that part. It will similar like a EC2 machine, but it's very easy to host any website. You can pick up any Docker image from the Docker Hub, like WordPress or any other Python or Node.js application, and feel free to use it as a Docker image and host it. This is the way generally I recommend to start with the AWS, a simpler way. Let's not go into the more complex word because AWS is a C. Everything is interesting to explore. We are also learning it, right? So go with the very slow pace with the small part. That's why the recommendation from my side.
Awesome, great. And one more question to you as well. So since you are a community builder and we have a lot of folks, interested folks right now to get started with AWS, and you have already shared about. So what is an AWS community builder program is actually is, and what it makes it so special, and what would be one or two key takeaways from your side, so that why should I join that, and what benefits I could read from that program? I like to hear it from you. Yes.
Okay, sure, yeah. So AWS community program is a program is built for the people who are contributing to AWS or maybe it's a cloud by using the blogs, by using videos, or by speaking in the meetup kind of thing, right? To give a kind of a title to that contribution. Okay, they are doing good job, and that will be a title for them. Okay, and it's like appreciating your effort towards the community by giving these titles. Okay, and the benefit of this title is like you will always get a lot of the peer learning. Okay, you will get to know the directly AWS employee. There are a lot of folks like AWS heroes are there to help you and guide you with that. The major perk of the AWS is that you have a direct connect with the AWS employee. You have a direct connect with the sharing the feedbacks also about what is the challenges, what is the new thing we want. Everything can be there. And interesting takeaway from the AWS builder, which I have seen in my journey in my career from last 3 years. This is my third year of renewal part. I'm growing it. I'm growing the more faster than I used to grow earlier before the AWS community builder, because the more thing to be contribute, you will explore more thing to learn. You will keep exploring more thing to create the different way of learning it, different creating. I tell you, I start with the blog. I was writing the blog from the last 12 years. Okay, but the way I used to write a blog a 12 year back and today there is a huge difference. Okay, there is huge difference because referring to the people who are already writing it, learning from them, how they're writing it, how they're making a story, and now the creating a YouTube also content, how they're doing it, what can be used a tool to create more interesting content. Everything is learned, and learning is going to help us throughout the journey. You should not stop your learning. That is the major key takeaway from this program. I really appreciate with the this program which is launched.
Awesome, great. And folks who are looking for how do I get started or what should I do to contribute and so on. So all you have to do is, if you're a college student, do join in our College Champs initiative, where we have a very dedicated program for you college folks for you to engage with your college much more better. And you can also host and run community sessions in your college. And if you're a professional or a developer who wants to start contributing, whether it can be memes, comics, reels, or blogs or technical this one, we have experts here for you to help and guide. All we want is your enthusiasm and interest to do that. And do connect with us, be part of our creators program. To know more about these initiatives, you can check out our website where it has all these information, and you can just go ahead and submit your talk. So submit your contributions. So with that, you can showcase your AWS knowledge as well as a contribution to the community in an open world, and this will also pave your path to become a AWS community builder soon. So with that being said, thank you so much for Avinash for your talk, and please stay tuned in the comment section if you have any questions. People loved your session and demo with what I'm seeing from the comments. So thank you, Avinash, and really happy to host you today, and looking forward to hosting more sessions as well.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. Thanks.
Awesome. So yeah, so we have right now one more session coming up, and followed by that we have another interesting quiz. So folks who have been a little bit of messed up with the first quiz, now you have one more chance. So I guess you loved Avinash session and know what's going on around there. All you have to do is the next session is coming up and be part of it. So Abhinav, Vaibhav, so you can check out our creators group in our website. Go to our website bit.ly/AWSUGMDU, or you can see the link which is being there. So that has all the information about you to become a creator. So go inside the creators tab, and it has information about what this does and how you can contribute and everything. So we will be soon uploading the leaderboard of June month for the serverless month. We are going to also announce the theme for July month as well. So with that, all this information, I'd like to invite the next speaker to the platform, Bismillah. Hi, how are you
Hi,
doing?
hi, Vic. I'm doing good. Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you here. So myself, Bismillah is an amazing AI person. And also be an active follower of AWS user group. Madhurai. So I'm very happy to have you on stream to deliver for you to deliver a session here. So a little bit of what Bismillah does. He has an amazing 12 years or more than 12 years of experience, and he has a very good love for AI, machine learning, and deep learning as well. So he is also 3 times AWS certified. So which is adds a feather to his hat as well. So without further much ado, I'd like to hand over the session, the platform to Bismillah. Please go ahead, and I'm really excited to hear your session. And folks, remember at the end of this session, we have a quiz and some amazing announcements coming up. So please stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. Let me share my screen. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen, and I'm so excited to present you on this Serverless Saturday organized by AWS User Group Madurai. And today's my topic of presentation is building and deploying serverless AA on AWS Cloud. Um, a quick intro about me. My name is Bismillah Khani. I'm an AWS community builder. I've been recently joined into the community under the category of machine learning. For the full time, I work as a staff AAML scientist at Waygate Technologies, where I lead a team of AI scientists and ML engineers building a computer vision platform for industrial inspections. If you like to reach out to me, you can scan this QR code where it will show you the social media links. Yeah, with that, let's get into the topic for today. Yeah, so today's agenda will look into the serverless application model, which is called as SAM. And then we will also see like how we can deploy an AI model using SAM framework into AWS Cloud using different functionalities of serverless resources in AWS. And then we'll finally touch upon SageMaker serverless since we are focusing on AAML stack. SageMaker is one of the core AWS services for AA and ML. And recently SageMaker has launched this, and we will see now what is it all about to offer us. So with that, I will also just give you an expectation that this session is more at a beginner's level and a basic introduction to what a SAM framework is about and how this can be leveraged to A, right? Um, yeah, so with that, what is SAM? So SAM is basically a serverless infrastructure as a code framework that makes the developers life easier because it takes a lot of heavy lifting and it makes building and developing and deploying a serverless application on AWS easier. So this is an open source tool, and it gives you like a very easy to use framework, and it minimizes, and it offloads a lot of typical complex workflows that is uh, typically experienced in a traditional or architectures where developers want to provision infrastructures for their solutions. Uh, and what does SAM offers us? So SAM comes in two tools. One is the SAM templates. Another one is the SAM command line interface or the CLIs. So SAM template is nothing but it's a configuration file. It's equivalent to what a cloud formation template is about, and it is written as a YAML or a JSON file. And this actually defines as a declarative format of code where you define what resources you want into your serverless applications. And this SAM template is built on top of AWS Cloud Formation template, but the huge advantage what SAM templates offers is a simplified syntax, because you can create your serverless applications in less than 20 lines of code, as you might compare to a cloud formation template where you might want to take care of writing several lines of code, maybe 3x times of what SAM would offer us. It could actually deploy AWS serverless resources like Lambda functions, API gateways, DynamoDB tables, but it can also do handle more resources, which we'll see in the next slide. So, and coming to the next point, which is SAM command line interface. This is where is what you will use or you interact with in order to build and deploy your serverless applications. So it plays a very critical role in actually developing a serverless application and also doing a testing of your serverless applications. And also it offers you a local mode to develop and test your serverless applications. So it has a certain list of commands like, for example, init, build, deploy, delete, and it's very intuitive. You don't have to do any complex workflows. With simple steps, you can quickly deploy a serverless applications in a minute or so. So how does a SAM template look like? So this is a main building blocks of a SAM template. It starts with a definition of like what, whether it is a SAM template. So this first block tells the AWS that this is an SAM template, and it actually will tell the CloudFormation to transform this SAM template into an actual CloudFormation template. And so the second main important part is the resources block, where you actually define your infrastructures, either it be a Lambda function or an API gateway or a DynamoDB table. All can be defined in less than 10 lines of code, like as it has been explained here. So you say that, hey, I want a Lambda functions, then you see your type is a serverless function, then you specify where is your code, what is your function handler, what runtime you want, and what are the IAM policies to be attached to your Lambda functions. Then you can also configure your events, which is in this case is an API. So you just say that my event type is API. It takes care of provisioning an API gateway for you in the behind the scenes. You can also define an DynamoDB table just with like one line of code. So it's as easy as that. And so what are all the serverless resources that SAM can now support is basically all the 9 serverless resources that is listed here. And most frequently we use the Lambda function, which is this. And then we also use API gateway. And if you want to store your sessions data, then you can use a dynamo DB table by using this. So it also supports other things like the step functions, AWS step functions, or the GraphQL. And if you want to add dependencies to your Lambda functions, you can use it the way. So with that, I that's a brief overview of what SAM is. Now we will see like how we can deploy an AI model using this SAM framework. So what kind of AI model today I'm going to demo for you is like we use a model on AI pipeline called clip crop. And what does this clip crop does is this takes an input image as shown here, and it contains like three objects. Now, if you want to search for a certain objects and detect those objects and crop that from this, then you can just do that by just giving a text query. So in this case, I just say, hey, return me or crop me the region of the image where the horse is. Then the model will then look in and search for the horse in the image, and then it crops and gives you the cropped image of it. Now, how are we going to deploy this as a serverless application into our AWS using SAM framework is following this simple architecture where we have a Lambda function where the inference function is actually deployed. And then since it's an AI model, it needs a lot of dependencies, and we build a container image. And this container image is then pushed into the ECR repository, and then this Lambda function is exposed to a client using an API gateway. So this API gateway receives a post request in terms of the image URL and the search queries. And then it can then process those image and returns you the cropped image out of it. So we'll see a quick demo, and then I will also show you like how this can be deployed into your AWS. So let me, yeah, if you can still see my screen. So this is a simple application I just built out of it. Now let me grab my API URL here. So you can just once deployed, you will get a API URL. Then you can also view the image URL that you are interested in, and then search, ask the image to, let's say, search for the horse in the image. Then it's actually now running the Lambda function, and in a moment the function will return the cropped image of the horse. As you can see, it's returned the horse. Now I am interested in, let's say, dog, and then it does search for the dog location within the image, and then it crops the dog image and give it to you. So this entire application is deployed as in serverless in AWS. So now we will see how I deployed this into AWS. So if I can quickly, okay. So here is my AWS account, and what I have done is the entire source code of this has been shared in this GitHub repository, and you can go to GitHub/Vishnu and slash AWS Serverless AA. And I have explained all the codes. I have given all the source codes, and I will explain like how you can deploy this with the detailed steps. We will do that now in live, how I deployed this. Okay, so now we are into Cloud9, and I have already cloned that GitHub repo, and you can see that I have my source codes here. And so instead of doing deploying the clip crop now at live, so what I will do is, since clip crop might take a bit like 5 to 10 minutes to build and deploy, I will actually build and deploy lighter weight applications, which is a MS digit classifier for you, just to take you or walk you through the steps to use a SAM to deploy a machine learning model in AWS. So, so what I'm going to do is now I have it, then I just go into my applications. So going to SAM, and then let me go into the digit classifier, and let's see what is there in the digit classifier. So we have the application code, we have the Docker file, and we have the requirements file, and we have the model file. So now what I can do is, since I'm in Cloud 9, all of my SAM CLI is installed and all of the permission is taken care for me. But if you're doing out of Cloud 9, if you're doing it locally in your from VS Code, you just need to install SAM as a prerequisite. But for now, since we are working in Cloud 9, it's already taken care. You can just check whether your SAM is installed by checking the version of the SAM. And then the first step was is to build the project, the SAM project itself. So you can use a simple command like SAM build, and which will then build your container image that needs to be pushed into the easier to be deployed as a Lambda function. So it will take a minute or two. Yeah. So now the build is succeeded, and it says that, hey, now you can go and deploy your serverless application in AWS. So the next important function that we might need is AWS deploy. But there's also a mode, a guided mode of deploying. So we can just give the argument as guided. Then what it will give is like, then it asks you a several questions like what should be your start name. So then we can just say AWS user group Madurai. We can say digit classifier. Then it asks you what region you want to deploy. It asks you like whether you want to confirm the stack before you want to deploy. We can say yes, because then you can have a look before you want to deploy. You want to allow it to create IAM role. Yes. Do you want to roll back if any failure happens? Um, I mean, it is asking whether you want to disable. No, I don't want to disable. Then it's asked inference functions may not authorize. I said okay, yes. And save arguments, I do not want to save. And then it says create manage easier repositories, yes. So then it starts to build the serverless applications for me. So meanwhile, while it's deploying, we can also take a look at what is happening within this. So if you go and see, so we have the application code in app.py. So what I have here is a simple Lambda function, right? Which basically takes in an image file, and then it converts that and resizes that into an image, and then takes in the model and then does a forward pass and gets the label for me, and then it returns the label as a response. So now Sam asked me whether you want to deploy this change, if you want to review like what are all the resources that will be created for you. It's just an Lambda inference function with an IAM role, and also it creates an API gateway for me. Okay, so I say yes, and then it's going to deploy it for me. So this is my simple Lambda function, not what you typically you might want to write it in your Lambda. And then you also need a requirements function to tell you like what are the dependencies for this applications. So since in this case I'm using a torch, so I have implemented torch and torch vision. And also since I'm using pill for reading images and processing, I also do a pill. And since we are deploying this Lambda function as a Docker image, we also need a Docker file. So Docker file is very simple since it's a very simple applications. Just copy the requirements, copy the model, install the requirements file, and then run this app.lambda handler, right? It's very simple as it is. So now the deployment is going on in the background. So what it does is it actually creates a cloud formation template for you, and then it provisions all these infrastructures for you. So now it, as an output of this, it also gives you the API gateway where you can use it for your invocations. So let's do a quick test whether our deployment went well. So this is what is your API gateway. Then you can go and test it in any of your Postman or Insomnia. So I just copied this and I send a file. Let's say I want to test this image. It says yes, and then I send it to my Lambda. Since Lambda is a sort of have this cold start for the first request, it might take several seconds than what you might anticipate, but the further request will be faster. So meanwhile, we can also go and see like how is our stack deployed. Right? You can go into the cloud formation and see if our stack is visible there. Yeah, there you go. So here's the stack: AWS UG Madurai, digit classifier, and basically this is the SAM template is converted into a cloud formation template, and it is being created for you. Now, what resources has been created? You can have a look. So now it's predicted, and you can also test with another image. Let's say, who send it, and it gives you the results. Okay, so that's how you can do, and I just use this digit classifier as a quick example. But if you're interested in to actually deploy more sophisticated AI models like the clip crop, the code is already provided for you. The same steps you can follow. Just log into the clip crop just like this, and then just start building sample, and then this next step is SAM deploy. But since it's a heavy model, I can just quickly show you like if I show you what is going on beyond the screen. So this is the clip crop, and what it does is it just takes an image and it uses the OpenAI clip model, which is contrastive language image pre-training, which means that it can actually compare, or it has a two models, which is a text encoder and an image encoder. It takes your search query, converts that into a text embedding. It takes your image and converts that into an image embedding, and then finds the similarity between your search query or a text query, and then pulls in the image which has more relevance or more similarity to a text search query. Okay. You can read up more detail about OpenAI Clip and what is going on. I have given the source code. I think it should be, but if you want to know more detail, you can reach out to me. Yeah, so with that, I think we have covered SAM and how you can deploy SAM or deploy an AI model using SAM. The next topic I just want to quickly touch upon is SageMaker serverless. Um, So SageMaker offers us four different types of inference types. One is the real-time inference, which you might be using it more frequently. If you have a machine learning model and if you want to deploy it as an endpoint for doing a real-time inference, and this is the type of endpoint you would actually do. So it is very good for real time. It has a the least latency among all the different types of endpoints SageMaker offers. The second type of endpoint is a batch transform. It's not a real time as the name suggests, but if you have a large volume of data and you want to infer on all the entire data set, then you can use as a batch transform. So it will be done as an offline, and then it runs your model on the entire data sets and returns you the results. The third interesting type of inference is asynchronous inference, which basically queues in the incoming request and processes them asynchronously. Now, what is the significance of asynchronous inference is in real-time inference, it has a maximum time limit that is like 1 minute, 60 seconds. But if you're processing a video of, let's say, 1 minute or 2 minute or 3 minute, it means that you cannot do inference on such video files, right? Which means then the only option that you have is asynchronous inference, which is like it takes the inference and it process that videos asynchronously. And once the results are ready, then you get a message from SMS, hey, your video has been processed, now you can go and fetch the results. So which means that you don't have to basically wait for your results to come, which is what's the case in real-time inference. The final thing, what is more relevant to today's topic, is the serverless inference, which actually mimics what Lambda does for any type of workloads. But since machine learning is more built around a SageMaker, we didn't have this serverless inference for quite some time. And this serverless inference was introduced in 2021 reinvent. It was in the previous stage for quite some time and now it is generally available. So if you have a unpredictable traffic and where you are keeping spikes in your traffic, and if you want to have a cost effective solutions, I think serverless inference is the ideal endpoint. So both say asynchronous inference and serverless inference is also cost effective because they can actually scale down to zero if there is no more load on your endpoints. I'm not going to give a demo on SageMaker serverless, but I have provided the notebook, Jupyter notebook, where it will deploy a Hugging Face model as a serverless endpoint. So you can keep that just 24 hours, and it will be only charged just like how Lambda charges you, only for the how many minutes or seconds it's run. That is how it will be charged. But how SageMaker Serverless works behind the screen is like this. All you need to provide is only your inference function and your model files. Everything else, containerizing your solution and the managing the infrastructure and running this endpoint and auto scaling up and down or in and out is managed everything for you. Okay. Uh, yeah, so with that, I think I have come to the end of my presentation. But before that, I just want to share this. Being an AWS community builder, I just want to share some resources with you which might be useful for you. If you want to learn more about AWS, if you want to upskill on and different technologies of AWS, this is an awesome platform which is a skillbuilder.aws. You can scan this QR code. There is numerous free courses, workshops, tutorials available in this, and it will really help you to ramp up your AWS skills. Also, you can register for some learning path which might be of your interest, either be a serverless or be a machine learning. There are well-designed learning paths for you. You can register it and you can pass it. Then you will get a learning patches, which you can use it for your resume or your profile prediction. Yeah, so with that, I have come to my end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your patience in listening to me. I hope that was useful and interesting. If you want to reach out to me, please scan this QR code. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. That was an amazing session. So myself being an ML advocate and a lover for machine learning. So now with that serverless being in our hands, so it makes AI deployment very easy. So we don't really need to much deep dive into the complications of deployment of machine learning models. So that's an amazing talk and really lovely talk. Very precise, very simple, and very effective as well. Thanks, and we very love to have you back in future sessions of UG Madurai.
Thank you, Rick, for your information. Yeah.
Thanks for your time. And here we go for the next part of the last segment of our today's talk, today's event. So we have the next quiz coming up. So all you have to do is the quiz. The link is in the bottom, running in the screen. You can open us there as well, and we have. Or you can also scan the QR code which is on the screen. Just give me a second. Yes, do scan the QR code and you will be able to open. Or you can go to the link which is conf.me/Q633856. So we are going to start with the quiz, and all you have to do is 4 questions, make it right, make it quick, and it's purely very simple based on the past 2 sessions. So if you slightly paid attention, I guess you would be able to get all the perfect score. So here we go for the quiz number 2. I'm giving a couple of more seconds. Hope you all scan the QR code, or you can use the link which is in the comments as well as on the screen. I'm going to start the quiz. I'll wait for a couple of more time for you to also hop in. So the quiz is, the link is given as conf.me/Q633856. So participants hop in as soon as possible. We have the quiz happening right now. So we'll wait 1 more minute for people to hop in. Hope you guys have the link. And thanks, Bismillah, for taking the question offline as well. Yes. We have giving you guys 1 more minute before we start. The link is given in the one, so if not, just scan the QR code right on the screen. Okay, so I guess we are good to go for the quiz. So we have more than 10 people up and ready. So one winner, get the 4 questions right, quick and right. The first question is coming on your screen in a couple of seconds. Again, don't refresh your screen. Stay tuned to your mobile or your device which are logged in, nothing much more. What is Amazon ECS? Why it is used for? Is it a hosting service, deployment service, Kubernetes service, or is it an orchestration service? Pretty easy, I guess. You have a little bit of awareness about AWS services. I guess you could easily get it done. So let's see the leaderboard, whether they got it right. Yes, it's an orchestration service, pretty simple. It's a highly scalable, high performance container orchestration service. So we got 4 people who got the right answers. But anyways, the quiz is still up and running. Anything can happen in the next 3 questions, so stay tuned. Going on to the second question. You would like a serverless service to launch Docker containers with no infrastructure to provision. Which AWS service should you use? Lambda, Fargate, Elastic Beanstalk, or Lightsail? Guys, and it's only the one winner who can be crowned as today's quiz. So hope you guys have it done. Yes, I guess we have 7 participants who got it correct. So Karthik leading the quiz with 2 points, 2 out of 2, followed by Arvind and Jitendra. They all have the good scores right now. Only the seconds, a couple of more seconds left. Astonishingly, only 500 milliseconds is the gap between the first and second place. So Arvind, you have to catch up a little bit fast. Next question. So here we go for the next one. Which of the following resources is not directly supported by SAM in AWS? Pretty easy, I guess. You need not even listen to the sessions, I guess. With common sense, you will be able to get it right. So, but anyways, let's see who's going to get it done correct in less than 10 seconds. And who's going to change the leaderboard coming up. It's easy to instance, obviously. So if I got it right. So Arvind and Jitendra with perfect scores. Still now, still one more to go. And guys, anything can happen over the last second. So give your best, answer it very quickly, and hope so your fellow mates get it right as well. Which AWS inference allow scaling down to 0 instances and no incoming traffic to minimize cost? A, real-time, async, serverless, multimodal. It's 2 answers are correct. So B and C, A and B, C and D, or B and D. A little bit take some time, get the right question, get the answer correct. That's more important than being fast, I guess. We have dropped a hint during the talk as well. So yeah, 7 people got it right. It's B and C. So here we go. For the leaderboard, I guess we are concluded to the end of today's quiz. And let's go to the leaderboard. The winner is Arvind. Arvind and Jitendra both have the perfect scores, and it's just a matter of the seconds, which is different. So, but I wanted to extend the pricing to Jitendra, who's for getting all the 4 questions right. So, both Arvind and Jitendra will be crowned as the first and second winner of today's quiz. So, congrats, guys! And we also have the winner of the first quiz, who is just give me the leaderboard of the first quiz. Sankara has got the full score. So Sankara, Arvind, and Jitendra are the winners of today's quiz event. So thank you guys, and we'll be soon announcing the winners for social media as well. So we'll be soon announcing in our social media handles for who are the winners of social media contest. So please stay tuned. Please follow our social handles to know the winners. Now I'd like to have our co-organizer Neetu onto the stage. Hi Neetu.
Hey, hi, Vivek.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yes.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
Okay, so how did you enjoy today's event? How was it, and what was your personal opinion about that?
Oh, it was great. I think being a Saturday morning, I think we had quite a discussion about food. I could hear food from all over our social media as well as all over YouTube as well. So it's great. And I think our speakers were phenomenal. They kind of spoke about different topics within serverless, from containerization to event filtering, all of that, right? So and AIML as well. So I think it's been great.
Awesome. Yep, that was an amazing conversation.
And congratulations, sorry, Vivek. Congratulations to all the quiz winners as well.
Yep. Congrats, winners. And it was a very good horizon of the talks we had. So from
Right.
Sushil, we got to know about that how really serverless works in real world, and we got to know about how Config and how they really incorporated serverless into that. So hearing right from the
Right.
serverless hero, and Jones as always vibrant and walked us through the AWS Lambda event triggering, and we also had Avinash, who walked us with AWS, how to host your website in AWS Market. So I guess that's the minimum starting point for anyone who wanted to be and touch basing on the different domain, but with connected with serverless. How to deploy your AWS or any AI model in AWS with serverless. So using a SAM model. So I guess we had an amazing line of talks. We had very good engagement from the audience. We'll just also walk through and remind what we are doing at UG Monday. So if you're not visited our website, so now our website will be our hub for us to run all the initiatives. So feel free to go and check it out what's happening over there. So our ultimate goal is to empower everyone to AWS, and we have been successfully doing that for past 1 year. So we have two main initiatives which is coming up. Just give me 1 second. My mouse is acting weird. Yeah. So what's happening? I guess Neetu, you can walk us through what college cloud champs are about.
Sure. So this is one of our latest initiatives, and we are very excited about this. We already have onboarded our first cohort of College Cloud Champs. So the mission for this, for having this initiative, is to identify, train, and empower student leaders, across colleges, to promote understanding and knowledge of AWS services, to spread knowledge about how we can leverage AWS services and engage and help the students engage with their peers in the community events and initiatives. So that's why we thought of creating a network of college champs who could collaborate, share their experiences, best practices, and help drive innovation and growth in the AWS ecosystem. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, so the basically the response, what is our objective with having this program is to identify such student leaders within colleges who are very passionate about sharing their knowledge, right, and have the potential to promote them within their communities, to give them the necessary training resources so that they'll be able to organize and promote AWS related events in their colleges, and to create a network of such student leaders who can collaborate and share their experience and give back to the community that we are all a part of. And when it comes to roles and responsibilities of these cloud champs, it's about, as I already said, organizing AWS related events and having initiatives such as workshops, hackathons, study groups in their colleges, then identifying and recruiting new members to the community from their college. Then they'll basically serve as a connective connection between us and the greater AWS community and their college, so by providing regular updates and feedback on their college's activities and initiatives. So
Yep.
that's what it is. The program is about, and it's based on renewal of every 6 months as well. So we want more and more people to, more and more students to join us and be a part of this greater community.
Absolutely. So, and also that's a main motive for us to folks to come and join in, and also we also want to know that you are always in the spotlight. You, in the sense, you user group members or anyone who's enthusiastic about AWS, we want to put you in spotlight, and that's the main reason we have come up with an initiative called Creators Club. The whole motto of Creators Club is that we give you the complete freedom and the resources and the support for you to create any AWS content. So we are breaking from the convention that the content what is need to be produced is not just need to be a blog or a technical talk like this. It can also be a meme. If you could communicate or help someone learn something new with your memes, or Instagram Reels where we spend a lot of time over there, or YouTube Shorts, or you want to create a comic, or you want to start a podcast, or you want to do anything that is that you want your creative flow to be, but using that as a medium to learn and share AWS knowledge, and we are allowed to showcase you in this one. So we will be able to support you in a lot of ways. And to know about it, what you have to do is you have to be a member of UG Madurai. Just sign up in our meetup group, and we have point system for each and every contributions. So if you like to be this one, so if you like to contribute as a meme, you get 1 point. If you wanted to contribute in social media, share knowledge over there or share some clips, then you can make it as 2 points. We have comics, if you could contribute as in comics, or Instagram reels, blogs, and technical videos. You can go through this document, which is available in our website, to know how you can contribute. If you have more doubts, you can reach out to us. And if you also, additionally, if your submission is based on the theme, so this June month is based on serverless. If you contribute, we have open till 30th, 1 more week left. If you contribute anything regards to serverless, along with the cumulative point which you have acquired over there, your points will be multiplied for each submission. If it's theme on serverless, your point will be multiplied 1.5 times. So if you are contributing a blog of 30 points, then you would get 45 points if the blog's theme is serverless or the theme of the month. And also, if your submission is submitted if you submit that same content in both English as well as any Indian language, preferably Tamil if you wanted to, inside our ecosystem, if you wanted to be in Tamil, or any other, if it's a Hindi or anything, if you submit the same content in 2 different languages, then you will also get additionally 1.5x times the point you get. So the leaderboard will be soon up, will be revised every first of the month. So what you have to do is go read the rules. If you have any doubts, reach out to us and make a submission. So post it in any public forum or send it to us, and we will post it on behalf of you. We'll review it. Once we approve, you will be also part of the Creators Cup leaderboard. So the leaderboard will be updated every month, the beginning of the first week of every month. So, and of course, we are not just going to leave you there. So the top contributors of each month will be getting something. And congrats to the winners as well. With that, we have some amazing initiatives coming up. So do let us know what you want to learn next, and we'll be happy to post the sessions. And we are very much elated to have so much good responses and the feedback that we get from today's session. So this month is serverless. Do suggest what you want to have for next month. We have some, bring in the right speakers for you, or if you want to speak, you can have it as well. Neetu, you want to add anything on top of it?
Yeah, sure. I think with this initiative of like want beginners, okay, new people who are not that familiar with tech blogging to come up and start writing articles and showcase. Well, when you're thinking about something, it's easier, but when you actually have to write down it in your own words, it gets tough. Okay, you most of the times it's tough to actually write down your thoughts. So it's always helpful when you are able to write it down, and tech blogging is really helpful that way, because you're actually working on the technology and you're able to write about it. It helps you in when you want to refer to it in your future, in the future times as well. So I would really want everyone to contribute to this, and with the theme of our of this month being serverless, I want to encourage everyone to contribute in the form of any creative aspect like memes or posts, anything.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
And the event wouldn't be successful without the members working in the background. So I want to extend a great of the gratitude to Haran, Subhanandini, Poovalan, and Harshavardhini for helping us to run this event successfully for more than 3 hours, which is not quite an easy task. So thank you, members who have been actively and enthusiastically being from the first start of this event. So hopefully we will bring more sessions to you. Stay tuned. Let us know what you want to learn next. And do follow us in Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Our handle is at AWS And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do it and press the bell icon for the latest notifications. So hope you all, if you haven't still signed up for us, you can sign up over here as well. So which is AWS User Group Madurai. You can find it in the meetup group as well. Google it and you'll be able to find us. So thank you everyone for hopping in, and we'll all meet you in the next upcoming sessions. Have a great Saturday, and thank you for joining on a weekend.
Thank you.